Muito bom dia a todos! Tava sem áudio, carai! Agora tá com áudio. Muito bom dia a todos. Tava limpando a câmera aqui que tava suja. Sejam bem-vindos para mais uma live. 5h50 da manhã de 12 de setembro de 2024, quinta-feira. Primeira caminhada espacial privada, private Spacewalk. Não se esqueça de deixar o like aí para fortalecer o job. Só tem 25 likes, galera. Deixa o like aí para fortalecer o job. Abrir o chat aqui. E mais uma vez, QR Code da Insider lá no canto da tela, Semana do Consumidor, ó. Tem o Felipe 15 ativo de novo. Comprar uma camisa para você apoiar a divulgação aqui. Os vídeos de ciência. Que já é difícil fazer. É difícil sobreviver no YouTube Brasil fazendo vídeo de ciência. Então, porra, dá um help aí, comprar uma camisa, que é uma camisa boa, tá? Camisa tecnológica, que não desbota. Vai comprar a camisa e vai ficar 2 anos com ela. Pelo menos. Compra lá, aponta o celular aí. Que tá com frete grátis e 15% de desconto usando o meu cupom lá, ó, Felipe 15. Beleza? Tô com a live da SpaceX aqui já. Deixa eu até dar um F5 aqui pra ver qual é. Fiz outra live de madrugada. Aí foi adiado pra agora de manhã. Tirei um cochilinho. Só aquele cochilinho de 15 mins. Tá ligado? O cochilinho de 15 mins que tu fica em estado de superposição, meio acordado, meio dormindo. A live tava dizendo que começava às 5h50, ó, são 5h54, ainda não iniciou a live da SpaceX. Vocês lançaram um Falcon 9 agora, né? Domingo agora estarei no Rock in Rio para assistir Evanescence. Tava ouvindo as músicas do Evanescence aqui agora, tocando no piano também. Evanescence e Avenged Sevenfold. Se você for no domingo no Rock in Rio, eu vou estar lá. Consegui um ingresso grátis. Consegui não, né? Na verdade, consegui de uma maneira meio triste, mas enfim, isso aí é outro papo. Eu vou, domingo tô lá. Vou ver o chat aqui. Alexandre aí que nem dormiu ainda. Rubens Fraga. Vinícius, Rafael. Helder. Fábio. Tá dormindo, Fábio? Acorda, Fábio. Tá dormindo, cara? Porra, caminhada espacial agora, meu irmão. Dorme não, cara. Galera, não esquece de deixar o like, galera, senão a live flopa. Deixa o like aí, galera. Ah, e tá fixado aí no chat, quem quiser mandar um pix com a mensagem da voz de A, tá aí o link no chat. Deixa eu dar uma olhada aqui na... Começou, hein? Começou, hein? Os brabo aí, ó. Ah, moleque.
Welcome to the webcast for the Polaris Dawn EVA, also known as an extravehicular activity or spacewalk. For the first time ever, a spacewalk will be performed by civilian astronauts flying on a commercial spacecraft.
Full HD.
Good morning, I'm Kate Tice, Senior Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Dan Hewitt from the
Os
communications
webcasters
team. Now, the first EVA in history
em Hawthorne,
was performed
Califórnia.
in 1965 by Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov, followed just 3 months later by the first American spacewalk done by Ed White during the Gemini 4 mission.
É
From those humble
hoje, meu
beginnings
irmão.
to walking on the surface of the moon, preparing satellites, building space stations in orbit.
Tá uma altitude de 565 quilômetros, tá? Deixa, peraí, que minha câmera tá em cima. Deixa eu colocar minha câmera para cima aqui, peraí.
Procedures for NASA and other space agencies.
Deixar minha câmera
This
aqui.
will be the first
E o QR
spacewalk
Code
using
da Insider, eu vou colocar um
commercially
pouquinho para
developed
baixo para não ficar em cima deles
and
aqui.
SpaceX's brand new EVA suits,
QR
which we
Code,
debuted
eu
earlier
soube
this
que se
year.
alguém apontar o celular e comprar a camisa, ele some da tela, tá?
Chambers here on Earth, but this is the first time that the suits will encounter the vacuum of space.
And on board the Dragon spacecraft right now is the Polaris Dawn crew.
Aí, ó.
Starting off,
Tripulação aí, ó.
Jared Rook Isaacman,
Anna Menon,
mission
Sarah
pilot
Gillies, Scott Poteet,
and for the first time
Jared
ever, we're excited
Isaacman.
about this, 2 SpaceX employees, mission specialist Sarah Cooper Gillis and Anna Walker Menon, who's serving as the mission specialist and medical officer. 4 members of the crew have been orbiting Earth for 2 days since they lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center on Tuesday, September 10th. That adds up to about 15 to 16 orbits around the Earth every single
Qual é,
day.
galera? Não esquece o like,
On
galera!
day 2 of the mission, as you can see there on your screen, Dragon fired its forward Draco bulkhead thrusters to send the spacecraft soaring higher than any Dragon mission to date, reaching the highest Earth orbit ever flown. The crew topped out at more than 1,400 kilometers, breaking the record set by Gemini 11 a half-century ago, when that spacecraft reached 1,373
Pô, tá faltando 50 likes na
This
live.
was also the farthest from Earth for a
70
crewed
likes tá
spacecraft
faltando.
since the last Apollo
Pô,
lunar
vocês só
mission
dão
in
like em jogo de
1972.
tigrinho, mano? Vídeo de
Since
ciência
that
vocês não dão
time,
like, não?
Dragon has gradually lowered its apogee, or the highest point in its orbit, as the crew got ready for the spacewalk today. They started to don or put on their EVA suits just a little bit of time ago, and they've been undergoing a
donning.
process called pre-breathing. The atmospheric pressure
Eles estão
inside
vestindo
Dragon
traje
is
lá.
slowly decreased, and oxygen is increased to prepare their bodies for the EVA suit environment. We're going to dive more into the operations of the
Estão se
spacewalk a
vestindo
little
lá.
bit later, and we're going to be hearing in live communications with the
Altitude ali, ó,
crew
600
throughout, so be sure
quilômetros.
to listen in as those happen.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting to hear
Transmissão
that.
com
And
Starlink,
as far
hein?
as views goes, we'll have Dragon's regular internal cameras that we have seen before, and up to 3 external cameras.
Pô, a galera não vai dar
one
like
aimed at
mesmo.
the hatch, kind of like what
Não
you see
adianta
there.
pedir.
One on
Poxa
Dragon's
vida, cara.
nose cone, which actually is the one that's there. That's the camera on the nose cone. And one on the newest piece of hardware that you see there in that view. That is the Skywalker, which we will come back to shortly. We may also have helmet cameras that will give us a first-person view from the crew, which will be incredible. Now, since we are not using Starlink to enable views today, there will be moments of expected loss of signal
Cadê a
due to
régua
ground
pra medir
station
ali?
coverage. So those views may be interrupted from time to time, but generally we expect to get some great shots today.
And as of right now, we're less than an hour away from the start of the EVA. For now, though, let's learn a little bit more about the mission and our crew. The Polaris program is a first-of-its-kind effort to rapidly advance human spaceflight capabilities while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes down here on Earth. Today's goal is to demonstrate critical operational capabilities that are going to serve as those building blocks to help further human space exploration. Polaris Dawn mission has a lot of first-time objectives, so the
A galera
Polaris
aí, ó.
program chose a crew of experts who know each other
Os
so they can
bravos.
tackle this mission's challenges as a team.
First up, Mission Commander Jared Rook Isaacman also served as the commander of Inspiration 4, the world's first
É o
all-civilian
comandante.
mission to space. Jared holds several world
Comandante.
records, including 2 speed around the world flights in 2008 and 2009 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He has flown in over 100 air shows as part of the Black Diamond Jet team, dedicating every performance to charitable causes. In 2011, Jared co-founded what would become the world's largest private air force, Draken International, and that trains pilots for the U.S. Armed Forces. In addition to his role as CEO of Shift 4, Jared is an accomplished pilot and astronaut with over 7,000 flight hours.
Next up, mission pilot Scott Kidd Poteet, who served as the mission director of Inspiration 4, and he goes by the nickname Kidd, which is also his call sign.
Scott.
He's a retired U.S. Air Force lieutenant colonel. Kidd served for 20 years in roles that included commander of the 64th
Coronel da
Squadron, Thunderbird
USAF.
number 4 demonstration pilot, U.S. Air Force weapons school graduate,
Aposentado, né?
operational test and evaluation pilot, and flight examiner. He's a
USAF é United
3,200 flying hours,
States
logged over
Air
400 hours
Force.
of combat time. And following his Air Force career, Kidd served in various roles, including Vice President of Strategy
Brabão
at
também.
Shift 4.
Mission specialist Sarah Cooper-Gillis is a lead space operations engineer here at SpaceX, and she's responsible
Sarah
for overseeing
Gillis.
our astronaut training program. She helped prepare NASA astronauts for the Demo 2 and Crew 1 missions, and most recently directly trained the Inspiration 4 astronauts. Sarah is an experienced mission control operator who has supported real-time operations for Dragon's cargo
Faltando
resupply
60
missions
likes
to
ainda na
and from
live.
the
Deixa o
International
like
Space
aí, galera.
Station
Deixa o like
as
aí, galera.
navigation
Senão a live vai
officer
flopar. Deixa o
and
like
as
aí,
a
galera.
crew
Deixa o like, deixa o like, deixa o like,
communicator
deixa o
for
like,
Dragon's
cara.
spaceflight missions. In 2015, while studying at the University of Colorado Boulder, Sarah started an internship at SpaceX before moving into the astronaut training program full-time.
And capping off the Polaris Dawn crew, mission specialist and medical officer Anna Walker-Menon, who serves as
Anna
the lead
Menon.
space operations engineer
Anna
here at
Menon.
SpaceX, where she manages the development of crew operations and works in mission control as both a mission director and crew communicator. During her time at SpaceX, Anna has led the implementation of Dragon's crew capabilities and developed critical operational responses to vehicle emergencies. Prior to SpaceX, Anna worked for 7 years at NASA as a biomedical flight controller for the International Space Station. She received her bachelor's degree in mathematics and Spanish from Texas Christian University and her master's degree in biomedical engineering from Duke University. Everyone on this mission certainly has the background.
E tá subindo, 659 quilômetros agora de altitude.
You're going to space, that's clear. But let's take a moment now to meet our Polaris Dawn crew in their own words.
Hi, I'm Jared Isaacman,
I'm Scott Kidd.
Videozinho de
I'm Sarah
apresentação.
Gillis. And I'm Anna Menon.
and we're the Polaris Dawn crew. I love this crew. I mean, all of them are just so hardworking, so smart.
Será que vai ter série na
Over
Netflix
here
também?
is our mission pilot. Talk about a career in the Air Force, doing every job as a pilot that anyone would aspire to achieve, and having somebody who is been there before and can bring that perspective to our training, but also when we're on the mission is just so important.
We are what we are as a crew because of you. You hold us together and you are always there.
Glue.
Glue. You are always there predicting what every person needs.
And he's needy.
Ajeitar aqui o negócio.
What?
Our commander, Jared, I think he is incredibly sharp.
That's right.
Something I have just witnessed over and over is that he's always like 5 steps ahead of everybody else.
He's a visionary. He wanted to make it bigger than just
He's a
himself. It
visionary.
was about how we could contribute
Visionário.
and support organizations here on Earth, as well as continue to push the envelope for space exploration.
So Sarah Gillis, the technical competence, we don't get out of any engineering update or brief or go through a procedure or debrief without getting into the weeds and making sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted.
Quem são os dois que vai sair? Vai ser o Jared Isaacman e a Sarah Gillis.
We need to understand
Aproximadamente
the systems and the
2 horas, tá?
operations. It's her intellect.
Every time she speaks, every word is so thoughtfully prepared that served her in her role as core, it served her in her role as a trainer. Anna, you have this incredible joy that you bring to everyday life. It is infectious. It makes us all smile.
Feels like she always has this big picture. Doesn't necessarily always speak up on it, but when she does, like time for everybody to stop and listen. And then as a biomedical engineer and a background like that inspires like a ton of confidence that when you go up there, if people aren't feeling right, that she's going to be there to take care of her.
I cherish all the moments that we've had in these experiences, and we're just so excited to go to space.
Now that you know a little more about the Polaris Dawn crew, let's recap the mission so far and what's coming up next. Since liftoff and getting to their initial orbit on day 1, the crew has been quite busy. The crew had a few meals, got some rest, and spent a few hours demonstrating.
Tem alguma coisa de especial que eles vão fazer? É basicamente testar, cara, os trajes. Esses trajes é do tipo EVA, extravehicular, diferente dos EVAs, que é intravehicular. É um traje novo, específico para fazer caminhadas, então é para testar o traje, ver como é que funciona e tal. Esse é o principal. Ver mobilidade e tal, essas coisas. Ver se morre ou fica vivo, basicamente é isso.
Apogee lowering phasing burns. By now, Dragon
se ficar vivo, funcionou. Se morrer, deu ruim.
Of the mission of more than 1,400 kilometers to about 190 by 700 kilometers above the Earth. Also on day 2, the crew was joined on air by some very special guests. As you can see here, we are not here, but we had patients and families at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. They're joined live while Polaris Dawn crew member Anna Menon read from her new book, Kisses from Space. Along with the patients and families at St. Jude, Anna's children, James and Grace, also joined the reading. And afterward, the crew hosted a Q&A.
And speaking of St. Jude, for this mission, the Polaris Dawn crew enlisted the help of childhood cancer survivor Liv to create the mission's zero-G indicator. While not a St. Jude patient herself, Liv met the Inspiration 4 crew, and inspired by the mission of St. Jude, she agreed to share her talents to support Polaris Dawn.
Polaris Dawn.
And I spent when I heard Iman got Loki, I was like, done. I love her. I want Asteroid to be for every child and help them see, oh, Asteroid went to space. And I can too. I can achieve my dreams.
Asteroid.
We are also flying Liv's original drawing that you see there that was used to design the zero-G indicator, which we plan to return to her after it has flown in space.
Tem memezinho aí
design was
oculto.
inspired by the working dogs of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. All donations from the sale of Asteroid will be general donations to St. Jude. The Inspiration 4 mission helped raise more than $240 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And Polaris Dawn will continue to raise funds and awareness for St. Jude while partnering with the organization to provide healthcare in underserved communities around the world. Now, if you want your very own asteroid, they are available at shop.spacex.com and polarisdawn.com. I did just look.
Por que caminhada se eles, na verdade, vão ficar flutuando? Da mesma maneira que calor é energia em trânsito, e a gente fala que quando está muito quente, diz que está calor. Isso também não faz o menor sentido. Ou quando a gente diz que o sol vai nascer, sendo que o sol não nasce. Ele só aparece no horizonte.
Started just about 2 hours after the crew reached orbit. And this is when the pre-breathe process started. That's when the oxygen levels started to increase incrementally as the cabin pressure inside Dragon was started to get incrementally lower.
The pre-breathe process is designed to decrease the amount of nitrogen in the body, which then reduces the risk of decompression sickness, which can happen as atmospheric pressure lowers. Protocols like this are used for any spacewalk done today and might feel familiar to anyone here on Earth that has gone scuba diving and done a decompression stop after ascending from a pressure in deep water back up to the surface.
And to do all this, Dragon's just been slowly decreasing that cabin pressure. That allows the crew to acclimate each time the pressure gets lower. As they get ready for the lower pressure they'll be in the suit during the spacewalk itself. They've got the ability to pause the process if they experience any discomfort, but the ear equilibrium just kind of naturally adjusts as the pressure decreases. It's kind of like when your ears pop when you change altitude in an airplane. All 4 astronauts are going to be suited for the spacewalk today because Dragon does not have an airlock. That's also kind of why the entire cabin is going to be depressurized. That's why we have this kind of unique pre-breathe process with this stuff today too.
All of that brings us to now. So far, the crew has prepared the cabin for vacuum, which includes securing all loose items that they don't want floating
Ainda estão preparando lá
around.
os
They
negócios.
also completed medical checks, suit inspections, and final checkouts of the oxygen, venting, and nitrogen repressurization systems. After that,
Por
it
isso
was
que tá
time to put on
mostrando
their
esse
EVA suits.
And now Jared and
Dragon
Sarah
aqui, tá
will
vendo,
be
ó,
exiting the
8.6.
spacecraft today, while Kid and Anna will be supporting from the inside. Crew in the outer
Psia,
2 seats, Kid and
isso aqui vai
Anna
ficar
are gonna be
zero, tá?
fully strapped in.
Isso aqui é a
And the 2 in the
pressão.
middle seats, Jared and Sarah, are just going to be lightly secured ahead of the spacewalk.
Isso aqui é a
since they're
pressão
gonna be
dentro
moving
da
around and
nave,
eventually heading
dentro da
outside.
Dragon.
As we
Isso aqui
listen
vai a
into
zero
comms
quando
during
abrir.
the EVA, you may hear the crew referred to as EV1, which is Jared, and EV2, which is
Vicia
Sarah.
é a
Support
unidade
1 is
medida
Kid and support 2
imperial,
is Anna.
é...
Again, they will not exit the
eu
Dragon
não
during
lembro, é
the EVA,
pounds?
but make no mistake, they are very much
Pounds
performing
per
the
square
EVA just
inch
the same,
absolute.
and their
Acabei de ver
data is
aqui.
being collected as well.
Once everybody's in position, the seats are going to get rotated upright. Generally, they
É
stay
a
in
unidade
the
medida
reclined position for the majority of
imperial
the mission.
para
We're going to
pressão
rotate those
absoluta
upright during the EVA just to
em
give
relação
more
ao
room to
vácuo.
move about. After that seat rotation, the crew verifies that their heads-up display or the HUD on their helmet visors are turned on, operating as expected. This is how the crew will actually be able to keep tabs on the health of their suits, and they'll get some other stats of their suit operation during the spacewalk.
A altitude como é que tá
And
agora?
that will take us to the
737.
first official go-no-go checkpoint to determine if the EVA can proceed. After an operations brief from the SpaceX team, the crew will announce their go-no-go status, and then it'll be time for the spacewalk to begin. It's expected to last about 2 hours from the time that O2 begins flowing to the crew's suits until we complete the repressurization of the cabin.
And just prior to we get to cabin venting, pure oxygen is going to start flowing to the crew suits. That's when the EVA clock will start, so keep an eye on that. And this all gets followed by a suit leak check. We'll do the leak checks. Once those look good, Mission Control will start to vent the cabin, just removing the air in order to lower its pressure down until we can get to hatch opening.
Next, Dragon will use its Draco thrusters to reposition itself so that the trunk is facing the sun. This will help keep temperatures, communications, and
Ó,
spacecraft power
a
stable
orientação
during
em
the
relação ao Sol, tá vendo?
At this point, the crew should be ready to open Dragon's hatch and exit the spacecraft.
After the hatch gets opened, EV1, that's Jared's call sign during the spacewalk, he's going to be the first
Jared
to
vai
exit
ser o
the
primeiro.
spacecraft. He's going to go outside and he's going to do a series
Jared
of mobility
Isaacman vai
tests.
ser o
These are kind of the
primeiro.
core component of the spacewalk today. He's going to basically take the EVA suit through the paces. It's going to take about 15 minutes before he climbs back into Dragon.
After that, EV2, or Sarah, will step out into space to perform the same tests of her EVA suit before she then climbs back into Dragon. In addition to these suit mobility tests, Jared and Sarah will also
740 quilômetros de
evaluate
altitude,
Dragon's
hein?
new Skywalker hardware. We'll talk more about that in just a bit.
Then after she's completed her test, Sarah will stand by near the hatch for the actual closing. And at this point, after the hatch is closed, the EVA is not over. The hatch door gets closed, and then the cabin has to be repressurized. We got to get all that atmosphere back inside. After we start introducing that atmosphere, we'll do cabin leak checks.
Once those leak checks are complete, the crew will return to their seats, and the EVA will be complete when the cabin pressure has returned to nominal. So, for now, the crew is suited up and awaiting final checkouts and EVA venting, which will bring in Dragon to vacuum. With everything on track, we're about 45 minutes or so from the start of the spacewalk.
And before we get there, though, we're going to
Como é
expand the
vácuo
depth a little
absoluto?
bit.
Como
We're
fica
happy
água
to be joined
primordial?
by former
Achei que
NASA
era uma
astronaut
pergunta,
Mike
zoeira.
Hopkins. We were fortunate to have him tune in with us during the launch, and now we've got him to talk to us a little bit about spacewalking today. Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to be back here in Hawthorne with you tonight on this very memorable night for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, EVAs may be new to SpaceX, but you have participated in 5 yourself while you were on the International Space Station and spent a total of 333 days in space. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate on my 2 missions. The first one was back in 2013, and I went up on a Russian Soyuz. And on that one, we had 2 spacewalks. And the interesting thing about those spacewalks is they weren't planned. They were what
Surprise.
we call, yeah, they were a big surprise for us. Contingency spacewalk, and of course, surprises happen at Christmas because that's when we actually went out the door. Our second walk was on Christmas Eve. And that was pretty exciting to be doing a spacewalk.
Rubens Fraga, eles liberam ar dentro da cápsula para o espaço ou comprimem o ar existente dentro de algum cilindro para repressurizar? Não, eles liberam para o espaço. Tem uns tanquezinhos lá para depois repressurizar. Isso já foi feito antes, entendeu? Tem a quantidade fixa ali.
I mean, you really got to know Dragon probably more than anybody because you actually got to call it home while you were docked up there.
That's right. I mean, I tell you, it was quite an honor to get to be a part of that crew, to get to command that crew, and it was a great, amazing group of people. Not only Victor, Shannon, and Suichi, but also everybody.
Tá faltando 70 likes na live, galera.
But yes, you're right, Dan.
Deixa like aí para poder o YouTube recomendar a live, senão a live vai flopar.
And actually, you can see a picture of where I slept while I was on board for that second mission, and it was actually quite comfortable. And one of the best parts about being able to sleep on Dragon is that I had a view, had the window, and our other crew quarters did not. So I've got some amazing pictures from my time staying in Dragon.
That's amazing. It's great to have you here. I had the pleasure of watching you launch
Então significa que é uma quantidade, sim, exatamente, existe uma quantidade limitada de vezes que podem sair e abrir a porta, já que é exatamente. Quer dizer, quantidade de vezes fixa que pode pressurizar, despressurizar. Eles têm uns tanquezinhos ali de nitrogênio e oxigênio para poder repressurizar a cápsula depois. Eles vão abrir e vai ficar despressurizado. Esse negocinho aqui do lado que está 8.6 é a pressão interna. Isso aqui vai a zero.
For the launch, we saw some of their videos of training, and I thought it was kind of fun to see them as trainees and somebody else getting to test them all the time. So yeah, it was pretty neat to get to see that.
Switching it up a little bit because we're starting to get some views back from Dragon. We've been treated to some pretty spectacular stuff as we were, all the way out to 1,400 kilometers. We like to talk about something called the overview effect. So kind of that first, and we're getting some comms from our crew too.
Yeah, I'm not.
SpaceX Dragon radio check.
Catch loud and clear, kid. Help me.
Catching loud and clear.
Ao vivaço com o Starlink, hein?
Dolphin continues.
Ao vivaço com o Starlink, mano.
Cover that, kid.
Make that Donnie.
All right, some quick comm checks. We heard Kid that Scott Potiti is going to be one of the support crew in there today. So our first comms down as we get ready for the spacewalk. But we're looking out the view. We're looking down at Earth.
Bom dia, César.
What's it like the first time you get to space? You get to look back, and I mean you can see horizon to horizon, the whole Earth below you.
It's kind of funny, Dan, because the overview effect is
velocidade dela tá aqui, ó, 25.000 km/h, tá vendo aqui?
On that Soyuz, gosh, how many years ago? Almost 9 years ago. I had this really weird feeling of falling. And so when I looked out that window the first time, I wasn't really thinking the big thoughts of an overview effect. I was kind of thinking, like, what is going on with my body right now? This feels really...
That's pretty, but oh no.
But again, fortunately, when you have time to be in space, you do have an opportunity to
Ele está contando da
experience that,
experiência
and it is
dele de quando ele
definitely
fez
true.
Caminhada
You'll hear
Espacial.
people talking about
Mas é na
that small
ISS.
sliver of atmosphere, and you see
cara que tá
that,
falando
and
aí,
that's
ó.
what's keeping us alive. You see a world without borders,
Aí ele aí.
which is incredible. But one of the experiences of the overview effect that I had was that that it gives you that sense of answers, but it also for me gave me a lot of questions and made me realize that there's a lot of this world I don't really know much about, the other parts, other countries, other societies, cultures, languages, and so it sometimes it brought
Corpo no vácuo não sente essa velocidade quando estiver na caminhada? Sente. Já estão sentindo.
Now, for
Eles já
those of us who
eles já
have never
estão
been
a
to space,
25
it
mil
can be hard
quilômetros
to
por hora.
imagine
A
looking
sensação é
down
de
from
queda
there,
livre.
here at planet
Free
Earth.
fall. Queda
Space
livre.
photographer and author
E a
Frank
orientação
White originally coined the
psicológica é
term
como
the
se você
overview
sempre
effect
estivesse
in a
em
book
pé,
of the
independente
same
de
name.
como
Here's
está
a
a sua
little more
orientação,
on the
virando para o
phenomenon
lado,
that
para o outro.
few of us have yet to experience.
A sensação mais parecida possível seria se você já pulou de paraquedas. Já pulou de paraquedas? Se você já pulou de paraquedas, você pode ter uma ideia mais ou menos de como é que é. É mais ou menos isso. É como se você estivesse caindo de paraquedas eternamente. Por isso que é queda livre, free fall.
It's hard to comprehend what the impact is going to be.
Pula de paraquedas, tira o vento, sem sentir o vento. Você não está sentindo o vento. Pula de paraquedas e imagina que você está caindo eternamente. É isso.
The big picture awareness that you gain from that sort of perspective when you were, journeying amongst the stars and see our entire planet as we know it there outside of your window, and kind of the philosophical and the many different emotions that it provokes inside of you when you see it that way.
We have barely begun our journey to explore the worlds around us. And that hit me right when I saw the moon rise around Earth and saying, like, come on, it's been 50 years. We got to get back there, and we got to get to Mars, and we got to figure out how to get out of our own solar system and try and figure out
what this is all about. Inspiration 4. Que tem série na Netflix, tá, galera?
There's so much incredible footage that crew members have taken from space and that you see from satellites. I think it's one of the things I'm looking forward to most on the mission is getting to see the Earth from that perspective. I can't wait to share what that experience is, but I guess I'll have to let you know once I get back.
And I mean, I think I speak for a lot of SpaceXers.
Seat 4 is next, support 2 is next, and then EV1 and 2 are shortly behind.
Copy on that crew status.
Getting a quick crew status from Kid. But yeah, I think I speak for a lot of SpaceXers. We really want to get up there and see that view, to feel that effect, to experience that, and being able
galera,
to see
não
it
esqueça de deixar o like na live, galera.
Pretty soon getting able to see a couple of people go out of Dragon for the first time in a spacewalk. I mean, spacewalks are kind of like living on the edge with spaceflight. It's always really cool. It's really important for just about any program. Like, what are some of the things when you were outside the space station? What were some of the things that you were working on, Mike?
Yeah, so when I went out, I mentioned that first spacewalk contingency.
Ela tem que ir para zero.
And so sometimes when we're going outside, it's not planned, and you have a component that is no longer working. And in this case, it was a part of the cooling system, external cooling system on station. And so we needed to go out and replace this refrigerator-sized pump module. And so that took us a couple walks to do that. Other times we're going out and we're putting a new piece of equipment on board. Sometimes normal maintenance. Sometimes we're upgrading equipment like new solar arrays, new batteries, and things of that nature. And sometimes you're doing like what the Polaris Dawn crew is going to do today, and you're just checking out the suits and checking out the equipment that you're going to use in future spacewalks as well.
Now, with all of the experience that you have up there, I'm guessing there might be an EVA experience or achievement that you are particularly proud of?
Well, I'm proud of every one of them, right? When you get out the door and then you come back in safely.
Sim, a pressão cai aos poucos. Você não pode liberar tudo de uma vez, não. Senão dá ruim. Tem que ir diminuindo a pressão aos poucos. Ela já diminuiu, cara. Se eu não me engano, eu não lembro. Porque aqui tá nessa unidade imperial, é foda, mano. Acho que é 15 o normal.
Actually, if I can, I'm just going to jump in on that.
Absolutely.
That's actually
Seria equivalente a... Só se jogarem no Google aí. Pressão atmosférica, que é PATM. Aí você bota converter para psia. Acho que dá 15, deixa eu ver aqui. Pressão atmosférica a nível do oceano, né? PATM
But anyway, going back to those spacewalks where I was
14.69.
and what are you proud of? It's
pressão igual do nível do mar é 14.69, está 8.6.
And so when you go out on the spacewalks and you know that you're a part of keeping that going, a big part of it is you don't want to mess up, right? Because people are depending on you. And
couple of people watching.
Cheguei agora. Qual o objetivo da caminhada espacial? Para ir audaciosamente onde nenhuma empresa privada foi antes.
That feels great.
Dragon SpaceX, our fan commanding is now complete.
Objetivo, sentir a brisa.
All right.
Sentir a brisa do
no surprise
espaço.
sounds in there for him. So,
That's right.
I mean, spacewalks are something that you train the heck out of. They're planned down to like the minute. What are, why? Like, what are some of the challenges you can run into when you're outside?
Por que a velocidade fica uma crescente constante? Você está falando disso daqui? Está subindo?
Worried about is how your suit's functioning, right? Because that's what's keeping you alive when you're outside like that.
Você está perguntando por que está subindo assim devagarzinho, mas está subindo de
people on the ground monitoring your suits and how that's performing, and so those are certainly things that you need to be conscious of and aware of. And then when you're out there as well.
Velocidades maiores em certas posições da trajetória e depois você tem velocidades menores.
Too much for you to remember, and so that's where it's a teamwork between you and the ground. And so they're making all those calls. Hey, here's your next step. Here's what the settings are for these tools, and they're just walking you through the whole process. And so I think that's one of the neat things about spacewalks that maybe people don't realize is you focus on the people actually getting to go out and do the walk.
Traçando
The team on the ground is such a huge part of that as well.
Os dois lados do triângulo, varre áreas iguais em tempos iguais. Se você varre áreas iguais em tempos iguais, a velocidade tem que mudar. Então, quanto mais próximo do perigeu, maior é a velocidade. Quanto mais longe, menor a velocidade. Então, se a velocidade está aumentando aqui de forma constante, isso já nos dá uma indicação de que está se movendo em direção ao perigeu. Ou seja, a altitude diminui, tá vendo? Que é o ponto mais próximo em relação à superfície da Terra.
Very, very focused, and you never want to let your guard down with it. I will say
Conseguiu visualizar mentalmente?
More comfortable with what's going on. You're more familiar, maybe is a better way to say that. But I think you can kind of trace it back to experiences down here in Earth. For me, a lot of times it's my
Se a porta não fechar, a escotilha. Se a escotilha não fechar, o que irão fazer? GG. Se não fechar, GG, filho.
Fifth spacewalk, like it was on that first one, you still have all of that energy that's ready to go out.
Well, so right now we're still kind of waiting to get into some of the final preparations for this spacewalk. We should be coming up on seat rotation. I don't know if we missed it or not, but again, they're going to be rotating those seats to move them upright. That's just going to give the crew a little bit extra room to move around as we get into this. But for now, why don't we take a couple of moments and meet Dragon. Polaris Dawn is SpaceX's 14th human spaceflight mission since 2020, when Dragon became the first private spacecraft to take humans to the International Space Station. It's also the first private spacecraft to take an all-civilian crew to orbit during the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021. And just prior to Polaris Dawn, Dragon completed 46 launches. 13 of those are human spaceflight missions.
Estatística aí, ó.
Since flown 50 astronauts
46 lançamentos
14 different countries.
Da Dragon. 46 lançamentos, 13 missões
in space.
Pretty
Caraca,
incredible stats there.
de voo humano.
And even from low Earth orbit, Dragon is
50
helping lay the
pessoas já
groundwork
voaram
for
na
deep space
Dragon.
exploration. Through missions like
14
Inspiration 4
países.
and Polaris Dawn, we are rapidly expanding our knowledge
Mais
of
de
how
1000
humans will adapt, live,
experimentos.
and work in space. Designed to be the safest spacecraft ever flown, the fully
Aí, ó, maneiro, tá
autonomous
mostrando aí,
Dragon
ó.
stands nearly 27 feet
Escotilha
tall
lateral.
and 13 feet around.
Tá vendo?
Dragon is
Os Super
capable of carrying up
Dracos,
to
que
7
são os
passengers to
motorzinhos.
and from Earth orbit and beyond, but today it's
Utilizados
carrying the
inclusive
4
na
members
volta,
of the
quando
Polaris
chega aqui na
Dawn crew.
Terra, né?
And the crew is currently living and working
A
in the
abertura
top
aqui,
portion
cone
of the
de nariz,
spacecraft.
né? O
That's that
hatch
white section
principal
that
de
you see
cima.
there, also known as the pressurized section.
Antenas.
This allows for the transport of
Antena,
people
painel
and
solar,
environmentally sensitive cargo.
Trunk, que é esse
Below that
negócio
Dragon's
aqui.
trunk, it sits right below the
Aqui, ó.
pressurized section that can carry
Esse aqui que eles
unpressurized
alteraram, né,
cargo
para
on
o
resupply
Skywalker, que eles
missions,
chamam.
and it remains attached to Dragon
escadinha
until
pra
shortly
saída.
before re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. And as you can see, about half the trunk is covered in solar panels. Those provide power to Dragon during the flight. The other half is the radiator. Dragon itself is equipped with 16 Draco thrusters. We got a really cool view of the 4 forward bulkhead ones firing earlier on this flight.
Esses são os Super Dracos, ele tá falando aqui
Those are
agora.
used to orient the spacecraft during the mission. They
ativados,
also
tá
get
vendo?
used for apogee and perigee raise and lower maneuvers, orbit adjustments, and attitude control. For the EVA, the Dracos are going to be used to reposition Dragon so the trunk is facing the sun, and they're also there to be used for reorientation during the spacewalk if needed.
In order to accommodate a spacewalk, this is the first Dragon to be outfitted with a Skywalker in place of the cupola observation dome. The Skywalker that you see there, looking up at it basically from underneath it. The Skywalker is a structure that is mounted to the top of the Dragon capsule, and the astronauts will use this to assist in exiting and re-entering the spacecraft during their spacewalk. The team also added additional
dia, Cal.
nitrogen
Não,
tanks
ainda
to
não.
assist in
Daqui a pouco.
repressurization of the capsule
Ainda não
after
aconteceu,
the
não.
EVA. Another new feature on Dragon is the addition of a motor plus handholds and footholds inside the spacecraft to help with opening and closing the hatch during the spacewalk.
This Dragon also carrying what we are calling the Starlink plug and placer, making this the first mission on Dragon to use the Starlink network in orbit. Inside of Dragon is a router connected to a user terminal in Dragon's trunk, and then this terminal is linked to a new plug and placer device that's mounted nearby. While we're not using Starlink for continuous coverage during this operation, we've been testing its ability to establish and maintain laser communications with our Starlink satellites there in orbit that
Starlink
are
pra
below
live.
Dragon.
Ué, por que tá caindo a audiência?
Dragon
O
has
que eu
proved to
fiz?
be quite a versatile spacecraft. It can autonomously
caindo a
dock
audiência.
to the space station when outfitted with the ISS docking adapter. And when it's intended for free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out.
SpaceX Dragon, you guys are welcome to come back aboard if you want.
SpaceX copies. Don't have a ground station right now, but we'll go ahead and bring cameras back on board so we get it when we do have ground stations.
Copy.
Quick comms there with SpaceX Core from the Dragon capsule. That was the crew just letting the folks here in mission control, letting us know that it's okay to turn the onboard cameras back on once we have coverage for those cameras. But getting back to the different configurations that we have for the Dragon capsule, I was talking about the docking adapter previously. When the Dragon capsule is intended for free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola, which is the one in the middle there, and that is used for the best views that you can get while in orbit. And then, of course, our newest option, the Skywalker hardware to support extravehicular activities, and that's what the crew is going to be using this morning. So those are the current 3 ways that Dragon can be configured to support different types of missions. But hey, you never know what's to come. We always got something up our sleeve.
That's right. Now, Mike, Crew 1 broke the record for the longest space flight by a U.S. crewed vehicle. It surpassed the 84-day mark that was set by an Apollo capsule during that final flight to the Skylab space station in 1974. What was it like? Because we went over it. You literally called Dragon home during that time.
Yeah,
what was it like to live in there?
So first of all, I got to say it's pretty exciting because the the Dragon that they're using right now is the Dragon that I lived in that took us to orbit.
Dragon Resilience.
Yeah, we affectionately called Resilience, and it was an amazing spacecraft. From a standpoint of living inside it, and again, it a lot of room actually compared to some of the other crew quarters that we had on board, and plus just being able to spend all that time in it. I'd call my family every night before I'd go to bed, and I'd be looking out the window at the Earth as I was doing that. It was very special.
Did any of them get jealous because you had the window seat?
Well, yeah, there was a little bit of that certainly going on up there.
Nice. Now, as you mentioned, this Dragon capsule that the that the Polaris Dawn crew is flying in was previously used, really debuted on the Crew 1 mission, hence why you guys had
Jaime, por que não dá para ver lixo espacial nessas filmagens que são realizadas, como a de agora da caminhada? Porque a ideia de lixo espacial que você deve ter é das imagens no Google, que fica aquele monte de coisa ali, só que está fora de escala. O espaço é muito grande, não dá para ver.
It just shows the flexibility of the design that SpaceX made when looking at the Crew Dragon.
Só que a gente tem uma noção de que teria muito lixo espacial por conta das imagens que a gente vê no Google.
And quite frankly, do it quite quickly as well. I think I don't remember the exact timing from our mission and when we landed to when Inspiration 4 launched, but it wasn't a very long time, and yet you were able to take that docking adapter off, put the cupola on in a very short time, which is also pretty impressive.
I actually have that noted here.
Minuto,
One took off in November of 2020, and Inspiration 4 lifted off in September of 2021.
That's incredible, because we landed in May of 21, and so within that short period of time, you reconfigured the vehicle and were able to put that cupola on and launch. Cool. Yeah, very impressive.
Your mission patch sticker is in the capsule that they're in now, and
we'll
exciting. Add their own sticker too as well.
Right.
All right. Well, as you can imagine, Dragon has undergone some changes for this, and with changes comes extensive testing for the mission. And all the modifications that we made in preparation for today had to go through kind of their own test regimen.
Yeah. Testing is a critical part of qualifying a spacecraft like Dragon for flight. Rigorous testing helps identify and mitigate potential risks, verify system and component reliability, and helps ensure that the designs meet the mission requirements. There are many types of tests a spacecraft might undergo when qualifying for flight, including structural, thermal vacuum, radiation, software, and integrated systems testing.
One of the tests the new Skywalker hardware underwent is thermal vacuum testing. This actually tested how Skywalker withstands the extreme temperature swings that it's going to see while it's in the vacuum of space. And while Dragon was being put through all of its paces, the Polaris Dawn crew was going through the same SpaceX training as part of that we give to NASA astronauts. They also had to train to perform their EVA, though. For basic training at SpaceX Hawthorne, they got trained on everything from orbital mechanics to just how to live and work in microgravity. Also ran through numerous simulations of what the full mission would look like while they were seated inside of our Dragon trainer.
In addition to ensuring that they're familiar with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, the crew went through an extensive training regimen to build their physical endurance and mental toughness.
Aí, faltam 70 pessoas para bater 227 mil inscritos, hein?
And today's EVA.
Now, switching gears, one of the coolest things, designed in-house by SpaceX, the EVA suit.
Divulgar aqui no Instagram.
Of our original spacesuit with the added bonus of allowing astronauts to exit the space.
Bora, galera, live agora, galera. Caminhada Espacial da Polaris Dawn.
Gives us a great opportunity
bora, live,
to test
bora.
our EVA suits in space. Building a base on the moon and a city on Mars will require thousands of spacesuits, so the development of this suit and the EVA performed on this mission will be important steps toward a scalable design for spacesuits on future long-duration missions.
As we mentioned, SpaceX designs and manufactures our own suits, and we have a little behind-the-scenes look for you, something most people don't get to see.
Primeiro superchat da live.
Very own suit lab.
Que eu não sei o que é, então. Valeu, obrigado pelos R$2 aí.
Vehicular activity suit, which is a spacesuit that can go outside of the spacecraft to do a spacewalk. We started with the IVA suit that we have, the intravehicular activity suit, as a kind of starting point, and looked at it and said, what would we have to change about this to be able to support a spacewalk? So the first is mobility. The crew will have to do a lot of moving around inside of Dragon to get outside and do the spacewalk. We had to add in new joints and new features in the suit to allow them enhanced mobility while the suit's pressurized.
When a crew member is pressurized in the suit, the soft portions of the suit become rigid. They need actual flexure and rotational joints.
Os caras que fabricaram o traje espacial, ó.
Kind of like a suit of armor made of fabric. We innovated in flexure joints to allow easy bending at the elbows and the knees, as well as a collapsible rotator joint that exists on the shoulder, which allows the suit to remain nearly fully soft, but when pressurized is a rotational bearing.
Costureiros da NASA, na verdade, esse é da SpaceX, né?
Is that on the IVA suit, the
Maria Sandrin.
location is in the inseam. But since we needed to have lots of mobility on our EVA suit, that was not the preferred
Tá falando
choice.
sobre a mobilidade.
Using a zipper system from the inseam to the waist, we mitigated the risk of the stress of the zipper.
And another big element was also the thermal side of things. The crew is obviously exposed to a much more extreme thermal environment during the EVA. So we want to make sure that the inside of the suit is comfortable for them, and that as they interface with parts of the vehicle, that is safe for them to touch as well.
Explica para uma leiga o que seria exatamente uma caminhada espacial. É quando eles saem da nave.
We wanted to have something that's
Só que nesse caso eles vão ficar presos por um cabo.
here in-house. So we developed
Na Estação Espacial Internacional, quando eles saem da estação e ficam ali fora para fazer alguma manutenção, aí é chamado de Spacewalk, caminhada espacial. Nesse caso aqui, é a primeira caminhada espacial para uma empresa privada, né? SpaceX.
The helmet on the EVA suit looks very similar to the IVA suit, but it is really an all-new design of that helmet. It's much more robust from a thermal structural perspective, since it would be taking more extreme temperatures.
We are really excited to introduce this new single-pane visor helmet to the world of spacesuits. The EVA suit visor is made of polycarbonate.
Sem o cabo vai embora, sem o cabo é GG. Sem o cabo já era, acabou.
These two coatings together reflect the sun away from the crew, as well as reflecting infrared heat back to the crew.
Sem o cabo é press F to pay respect.
Our suit has a HUD, or heads-up display, which is a small display screen in the helmet, which is transparent.
Quanto é essa brincadeira? Alguns milhões de dólares.
To have unfettered access during their EVA, but it also provides critical telemetry to the crew, so pressure, temperature, relative humidity.
We're trying to improve the technology and streamline it in one way, and at the same time we're also trying to get it more and more manufacturable with each generation. The ultimate goal.
Na Inspiration 4 foi 200 milhões de dólares, se eu não me engano. Você pode imaginar que essa missão aqui custa mais ou menos isso aí, 200 milhões de dólares.
We also had a chance to talk to the SpaceX team that developed some of the hardware and procedures for our first spacewalk. Let's hear what they had to say.
EVA stands for extravehicular activity, and it's any sort of operation in space where a human is getting out of the spacecraft. So in the case of Polaris Dawn, we're going to be testing the mobility of the suit. We're going to see if the in-space operation matches the training we've done here in Hawthorne. There's really a lot of different things that can happen during an EVA, and this is the first step for Dragon and SpaceX.
When I first started working at SpaceX, I never thought I'd be training a crew to do an EVA. It's brand new, it's so unique. We've never done anything like this before, and so we wanted to make sure we had the best possible training program for this mission.
Falta 71, galera. Se inscreve no canal aí, compartilha a live aí, galera.
A spacewalk on Earth in a way that's representative of what it feels like in space.
Even though only 2 people are going to be going outside during this first EVA, all 4 crew will be in EVA suits going down to vacuum.
Dragon was always designed to vent to full vacuum, but we've never taken full Dragon capsule down to vacuum, and this will be the first time we do it in space.
We actually put crew into a chamber at Johnson Space Center in Houston and had them live the exact profile that they will experience, and making sure that no one actually experienced decompression sickness.
We have a couple new training assets for Polaris Dawn to train the EVA specifically. The suspension system that we have is situated on top of the platform of our capsule simulator.
The lines drop through the hatch.
69 que falta.
A single crew member inside the capsule.
Para 227 mil inscritos.
And get them situated so that they can egress the capsule and perform their tasks at Skywalker, the mobility aid.
The Skywalker, what's amazing to me is a lot of people are going to think it's a metallic structure just bolted to the top of Dragon, but a lot of development effort.
Compartilha a live aí, galera, para o pessoal se inscrever.
So we actually used similar technology as we have in the Super Draco chambers to apply a thermal barrier coating to the outside of the Skywalker. That is going to be a really, really amazing mobility aid on the front end of Dragon.
We also developed a sideways simulator, so we flip the hatch on its side.
In the event the hatch fails to close, they can manually close the hatch. We have them do that in a sideways suspension
Ali eles estão fazendo a simulação para estudar como é que vai funcionar os procedimentos certinho.
New development for Dragon, it's new development for SpaceX and the industry as a whole. So this is a great example of where Polaris Dawn is forcing the team to innovate in a way that adds safety and reliability to every Dragon mission going forward.
That's this huge challenge for us to go solve, but that's also an opportunity for us to solve
Segundo superchat da live. Na live da Marco mandou ele R$2. Na live da NASA sempre estão na manutenção. Como assim? Não entendi. Na live da NASA estão na manutenção por quê?
With humans inside of Starship, which is right along the SpaceX development path that we have towards getting to the Moon and Mars.
Love seeing how not only the suit, but the space operations for the EVA itself came together and were developed. Now we are still counting down to the spacewalk this morning. The crew on board is completing final fit-ups, and we're going to be standing by for seat rotation and suit leak checks. So we're continuing to truck along to the main event. Now, Mike, you obviously went through some of the suit-up process that we saw in that package in terms of
seria exatamente uma caminhada
and how it's custom fitted.
Ué, Cal, eu acabei de explicar, você não estava na live, não?
It's the same case for an EVA suit, so maybe you can share with us what that experience was like.
Yeah, it's extremely important to have a suit that fits, whether, again, it's the IVA, the EVA suit, or the EMU that we wear with NASA when we go out on the spacewalks. And the reason for that
Starship, pelo visto, sai em novembro mesmo.
If it doesn't fit right, it can be extremely uncomfortable. You can get what you call hot spots, or there can be a place where a crease, when it gets pressurized, can really put a hard point on your arm or something of that nature. So having a good suit fit check is extremely important. And it's one of the things that was kind of fun as well, because you get to spend a lot of time with the suit team here with Chris and Eric
and
Maria.
They're a great crew. They're so good.
They're fantastic. And I mean, just over the years, they've gained so much experience, and they can really help you hone in on what the really good fitting suit is like, with just the way they ask the questions and lead you through that process.
Wow.
What are kind of the sensational differences from being in like the IVA suit? Because a lot of times the IVA suit, when it gets pressurized, it fills up, but you're still in like a pressured environment. With EVA suit, you're in the vacuum.
Right.
And so like, what's it kind of like?
Yeah, so that IVA suit, it has a different purpose, right? And that the purpose of that IVA suit is to keep us alive in the event of some type of an emergency that might happen during a launch or a landing. And so that's that case where either you have a fire or you have a depress event, and so that suit's going to pressurize. And so in that case, we're not as worried about like the mobility of the suit. You just want to get home and do it in a safe way. And so you need to have enough mobility to still be able to control the spacecraft and do the things you need to do, but you're just not as worried about it because you're not trying to perform a maintenance activity or something like that when you're going out on the
spacewalk.
And so I think that's one of the biggest differences between the IVA suit and the EVA suit, is just what the purpose of it is and what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, that feedback loop is so important to be able to communicate what feels good, what doesn't, because I imagine, as you're out there and having to perform, as you mentioned, maintenance activities, among other things, that the functionality of your body is critical to perform those.
It really is, and probably one of the hardest, I think, parts of the suit to design is the gloves. right? Because
Absolutely.
you hear us use the term "it fits like a glove," right? We use
Cara,
that a
doideira,
lot,
tô olhando pro céu da minha janela aqui e fico imaginando que tem uns malucos lá na PQP no céu. Pois é.
when you're outside on a spacewalk, as
Essa é a
opposed to
ideia
say
mesmo.
your feet when you're, because in space we don't use our feet or our legs as much as we do our hands. And,
Ó a
and so
altitude, como é que
when
tá
you're
agora,
in
hein?
a pressurized
277.
suit like that, and you're constantly grabbing and reaching, you are overcoming the pressure of the suit, and your hands can get just exhausted, and you can get those hot spots. I had some issues with my EMU gloves when I first started training at NASA, and I would actually get what's called delamination on my fingernails. And so there's just little things like that it really matters how well that suit fits and how well it functions, and so you don't realize how important that is sometimes.
Yeah. Now we are going to be stepping into suit leak checks soon. Can you share with us a little bit about what that process
Sempre fora da estação, mexendo em alguma coisa.
You've actually experienced what it feels like to go through suit leak checks, what that experience is like.
Extremely important part of the whole process, right? Because before you take the cabin, in this case, all the way down to vacuum, you want to make sure that your suit is maintaining the pressure that it needs
fora da estação, mexendo em alguma coisa.
And so it's not a very long process. It's usually just a few minutes to 2 or 3 minutes. And
Acho que esqueceu de mandar mensagem, John.
Pass that leak check, what do you do next? And so there's always usually procedures associated with that as well, that start checking your zipper, start checking how you've closed things up. Did you not get something sealed quite right?
Escreve no chat
so
aí,
it's always
Marco.
a good point in the mission when whether it's on the launch pad getting ready, whether it's in the airlock getting ready to go out the door, when you hear that, good leak check, because now you know that you're ready to go.
So today's going to be kind of unique because all 4 of our crew members are going to be doing the spacewalk. They're all going to be exposed to the vacuum of space. But I mean, even when you did spacewalks, it's never a solo act, right? Like you're always out there with a partner.
You are. It's extremely important. In fact, one of the hardest parts about our training for spacewalks is what we call incapacitated crew. And so you need to always be able to get your crewmate back into the airlock if something should happen, if they should no longer be conscious and something of that nature. And so we actually do spend quite a bit of time, and that's why it's extremely important for us to go out in pairs, because things can go wrong, and so you want to be prepared for those moments.
Yeah. That's a great point, Dan, to make, that while only Jared and Sarah are going to be somewhat exiting the spacecraft, all 4 crew members are going to be exposed to the vacuum of space, and it's actually going to set a new record for most number of people exposed to, or not them without a suit, but in the vacuum of gravity all at the same time. Yeah,
that's actually interesting. I never actually thought of that piece of this mission, and the fact that you're going to have 4 people on a spacewalk. I know at one point on a shuttle mission we had 3 folks outside on a spacewalk. And so, that's a big deal and kind of exciting. One of the things we do on the space station, of course, is we have astronauts that are still inside, and if we do get into those emergency situations, they're there prepared to help us get back into the airlock and get unsuited and things of that nature. So, of course, when you have all the crew, it just makes you think about those emergency situations probably in a little bit
Pode haver algo extraordinário. A questão é que a gente não sabe ainda direito, né? Naquele vídeo lá tem várias. Você viu as referências que eu deixei lá?
Today, so right now the crew is inside the spacecraft. They're getting suited up. We should be hearing some comments from them pretty soon.
Pode ser, né? O mecanismo de produção dos sonhos na mente humana, mas a gente não sabe ainda. É área de pesquisa ativa.
Copy that for sea rotation. Can you confirm crew is ready with the current glove zipper ups?
All right, I guess they just needed me to say it was coming soon, and then there it is. But we are going to.
Dá para ter esperanças de durante nossa vida esse tipo de viagem espacial se torne acessível para quem não é podre de rir como nós? Não. Infelizmente, você nasceu no Bostil.
So they're going to get those seats rotated, and then we're pretty much going to be ready to start getting into things. And our EVA is going to officially start when we start flowing
Ganhando em real, você
into
nunca
those
vai
suits.
conseguir.
And so that'll kind of start our clock. We're going to be showing you some of the telemetry. So all those numbers, the bottom of your screen, you've got a couple right now. That one all the way in the bottom left corner, that's your Dragon cabin pressure, that's in PSI.
O único jeito é estudar inglês, arrumar emprego lá fora, ganhar dinheiro e torcer para que daqui uns 20 anos fique melhor. Aí você consegue ter uma experiência dessa aí.
Great news there. That's going to help give the crew a little bit more room to move around during the spacewalk. And after we get through the seat rotation, we'll be able to perform those suit leak checks that we were just talking about.
Yeah, before they do that, they'll do what's called a tear. So it's kind of like if you're ever using a scale, you zero out the scale before you put something on it. It's essentially what we're doing with the suits. They'll get like a baseline reading. And then as we start to actually pressurize the suits, we'll be able to measure that against the baseline, make sure everybody's got basically a nice seal before we start that vent.
Yeah, that one's pretty important.
That was pretty important. Yeah, so a lot of that's coming up. Again, some of the data on your screen, you've got cabin pressure, you've got suit pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, seat rotation complete and nominal.
All right, seat rotation's complete, so now they're going to start doing that tear, getting
Aí,
ready.
giraram os bancos lá que eles ficam sentados nas cadeiras. Elas giraram para poder abrir mais espaço ali. Agora vão começar a preparar para sair lá. Fazendo a checagem se tem vazamento ó, nos trajes.
Copy. At this time, you are go to step into section 3 and tear suit deucers.
Olha lá, ó. Pressão de 8.6 no traje e 8.6 na Dragon. Eles colocaram os dois círculos aqui para mostrarem, para mostrar pra gente.
We're going to be referring to the crew a little differently for the EVA activity than we were previously. So we heard Anna talk EV1. That was referring to Jared. So basically his call sign for this spacewalk operation is EV1. Sarah's call sign will be EV2. Anna will be support 2, and Scott will be support 1. Also, Scott and
Qual será a altitude que a cápsula irá atingir durante a caminhada? 700. Só se eles mudaram, mas é 700. Vai começar a subir agora. Passou pelo perigeu, a altitude vai começar a subir, velocidade diminui. Quando chegar próximo de 700, eles vão sair.
So next up is going to be the HUD checkout. So the HUD, your heads-up display.
Very excited about this.
Really excited.
Tem perigo de enquanto eles caminham algum lixo espacial acabe com a festa? Sim. Porém é muito baixo.
That's your seat order. So you've got EV1 Jared is in that seat. He's going to be in that seat right now.
Valeu, John. Tamo junto.
Get ready to open the hatch.
Obrigado aí, cara.
He's going to be positioned kind of over by the hatch.
Tem chance sim, mas muito difícil acontecer. Existe mapeamento de rastreio de lixo espacial e é feita uma conta estatística para saber a probabilidade disso acontecer. Na altitude que eles estão, na posição que eles estão. E aí tem eu não lembro o número de cabeça, mas tem um número lá que se a chance se for 1 em não sei quantos milhões, é seguro ir, entendeu? Mas tem, a chance existe. Só é baixo.
Projected on their visor in their helmet, which if you've ever seen spacesuits, that's always kind of felt like that's that space age technology that we're missing. Because Mike, you use
e é GG também, tá? Já era também se acontecer, tá?
Unorthodox way to see like your suit data.
Yeah,
é sério?
That's right, Dan. It's
pegar
of course the suits
micrometeoroide, um negócio pequenininho assim, ó, porrar no traje, fura.
The backup sensors. Stand by to repeat HUD checks.
So, of course, the suits that we use for the spacewalks on station are a little bit older. They've been around for quite a while, and so some of this technology.
Olha eles aí.
Look, it's our first live views inside Dragon.
Olha eles aí.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I think this is the definition of chillin'.
Yeah.
66 agora, hein, galera? 66 pessoas para bater 227 mil. Será que eu consigo nessa live? 227 mil inscritos? Falta 66. É só compartilhar a live e pedir para alguém se inscrever.
He will be support 1. And then moving around in front of us is Sarah, who will be EV2. And then just out of view underneath the camera, but I think you can see her visor, is Anna Menon, who is support 2.
Dragon SpaceX, we're on backup sensors. Repeat HUD checks.
Crew's going to check out those heads-up displays one more time real quick.
SpaceX, HUD checkouts on backup sensors are nominal.
Copy, good HUDs. Returning to primary. Stand by for helmet camera checkouts.
On that heads-up display, they'll be able to see the O2 flow timer. That's kind of like our mission clock, essentially, like once the O2 has started to flow to their seats, and they know they've got about an hour and 50 minutes, just under 2 hours for the whole time. They'll be able to see their suit pressure, temperature. Basically, it's a way to kind of keep an eye on things. And we were talking about it a little
Galera,
bit.
mais uma vez, se você apoia este humilde canal, compra lá o QR Code lá embaixo da Insider, compra lá uma camisa Tech T-shirt que está liberado o cupom Felipe 15.
It can be pretty challenging to see. In fact, a lot of the information you have to use a mirror on your wrist.
Para apoiar esse canal a continuar vivo aqui na internet.
As well. You mentioned the timer. Of course, we don't have that kind of information on ours, and I'm not sure I'd want to know that because I'd feel the pressure of, hey, I got to get a lot of things done, and I'm running out of time. Yeah.
All right. So they're going through these HUD checkouts again pretty soon.
Dragon SpaceX powering on helmet cams.
We're going to get the helmet cams powered on. Again, give you that kind of look right over their shoulders.
Yeah, pretty excited for these. We've seen them utilized during the training sessions that the crew has undergone, and we're so excited to see them live today.
Yeah, I tell you, the helmet cameras, I mean, it's going to be fantastic views,
Agora vai
right,
fazer
that we're all going to love, but there's also a very important role for those cameras as well. Like when we have the same thing, we have helmet cameras
Esse go no
with
go
the EMUs.
é tipo um checklist, dá para chamar assim, é tipo um checklist para ver se está tudo ok para poder fazer, dar o sinal verde para fazer a caminhada.
So it really allows your ground teams to kind of be able to see what you're doing and almost double check your work.
Copy. Checkout's complete. HUDs will remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, report when complete.
All right, so we got through HUD checks, we got cameras on, powered, ready to go. So right now the crew is going to go through, they're going to do kind of a final review of all of their procedures.
Final review!
Like you talked about this a little bit, like these things are so choreographed because even if you couldn't see the clock, like you're on the clock. So you've really got to make the most out of like every single second you're doing one of these.
You do, and of course you see that with today's spacewalk as well.
Dragon SpaceX repeating. Checkouts are complete. HUDs are going to remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3 operations review through 3.8 and report when complete.
Não, o cara acabou de falar que tá tudo ok. O Jared.
Copy, inwards.
And the reason it's so choreographed and important is because you only have so much time outside, right? You only have so many consumables that allow you to go out there. And so you want to take advantage of all of that. And you want to have every step very well scripted so that there's not a lot of wasted time. Now, that being said, it is nice when you're out there once in a while to just kind of take a moment, look around, enjoy the views, kind of trying to absorb where you actually are, which can be pretty incredible as well.
Every once in a while. Guys, I'm a little tired.
Faltam 65 pessoas agora, hein, galera? Para bater os 227 mil, 65 pessoas.
All right, but like it's awesome. We're seeing the crew inside. We're getting close to the start of today's spacewalk. We're going to start flowing O2 to the suits, and that's when our clock's going to start. Right now, they're just doing kind of final cabin configurations. They're going to check the lighting. They're going to make sure that their umbilicals are in the right spot. That's one of the things you'll see. That's actually one of the roles that our support crew members are really going to. That's kind of one of their primary jobs during the spacewalk is to manage those umbilicals. For you guys, Mike, you had one. That's what plugs into kind of the leg in your suit, and that's what's providing like the breathing gas, comms, connections, all of that stuff. For the spacewalk today, it's a little bit different. This one that they're going to be using has some tethers in it for Anna. For Sarah and
tem algum objetivo a caminhada ou só vão testar? O objetivo é testar.
So it's dual purpose,
é a primeira vez que utiliza esse traje, entendeu? Eles vão testar o traje.
While they're out on the spacewalk, but it's
Esse
also
é o
providing
objetivo.
that safety piece, right?
Entendeu?
So that if something should happen, they should slip or that they're not going to go floating off into space. With the EMU that we use on the space station, we actually, all of those consumables are a part of the suit itself, and we have a separate safety tether that the first thing we do when we open that hatch and we go out is we hook up that safety tether, and it's an 85-foot reel that as you're moving around, it goes out with you to, again, protect for that.
Vou pegar copo d'água rapidinho, galera, peraí. Garganta seca de tanto falar já.
How hard was it to manage all of those tethers? I feel like every time I watched, it was like, there's no way in heck that this thing isn't getting snagged on something.
No, you're absolutely right, because everything, and you talked earlier about making sure there was no loose items in the cockpit, right? Because when you open that hatch, things are going to want to float away if they're not tied down or stored or anything like that. So when we go out on a spacewalk, not only do we keep us tethered to the spacecraft, but any tool, any part that we take out with us also has to be tethered. And it can be quite a challenge to manage. You'll open up a bag and there's 10 pieces of hardware in there with 10 different tethers, and they get all tangled up, and it can really be pretty challenging.
It's important, though. We simplified that a little bit for this mission. We actually basically built in that tether into the umbilical, one of which you can see actually there floating under Jared's right arm. So not only does that provide airflow and comms and all the normal connections that we have in the umbilicals, but we also added that strength to provide that protection.
Yeah, and the managing of that tether is extremely important, because as they go out, if it can get tangled up, and you actually see Sarah there kind of moving around, right? It's very easy in this environment where you're floating.
SpaceX, Dragon EVA off review complete through our in position for EVA start.
Nice.
Excellent news.
Copies, crew in position.
You saw Sarah kind of move the tether out of the way, and the part of that is that's actually impacting Jared.
SpaceX, you are go to command box to push to talk, all seats.
Copy, more.
So this'll be one of the unique things about the spacewalk today. It'll feel familiar if you watch some of Mike's spacewalks. The crew is going to go over to what's called Vox.
Push to talk is set. Go for com check.
Como esses trajes são testados em terra, ou seja, como é feita a simulação de vácuo no espaço para certificar que não... A certificação vai ser agora, tá? A certificação, o teste é exatamente agora, velho. Tá bom?
Essentially now, all of our crew are on open mics. They can talk and hear each other.
É agora.
And they can talk to the ground. And so you're going to hear a lot more chatter start to pick up. Once we start the suit pressurization, you're going to hear almost like a shh sound. That's just the air starting to
Não, esse é o objetivo, pô.
How loud does it get?
Em terra você tem câmara de vácuo que vai testar e tal. Tem os testes de temperatura também, porque tem que aguentar a radiação.
Providing you the oxygen, but it's also helping get rid of that CO2 that you're breathing out. So you want that airflow to be constantly going, and so you always are hearing that fan
Você tem câmara de vácuo e você entra com ele, com traje e testa para ver como é que funciona, como é que fica e tal. Mas o teste real é agora.
Push a button when you're outside there to talk.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation.
Got some fist bumps going on.
Yeah.
And we just heard we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation, so we should see them get the go to close their visors, and then they're going to open up one of the O2 valves on their suits to start the suit purge.
O My Sandbox é o link que está fixado no chat aqui.
So we'll get through the final goes, and then we'll see those visors get closed, oxygen start flowing, and we'll be off.
I love how everyone looks so calm and collected right now. I think that's a great visualization of just all the extensive training that they've gone through to get to this point. This has been years in the making. I'm sure they're excited, but
não, 100% de certeza não tem como.
It is an interesting time right now, right? Because one of the hardest parts I always found about
Dragon SpaceX. SpaceX is go for spacewalk operations. Report visors down, ready for secondary O2 flow initiation, and crew is go for spacewalk.
Não é agora, galera. A altitude tem que chegar em 700 ali.
Verify your visors are closed.
Eles ainda vão despressurizar a Dragon.
Secondary O2 valve is open. And that you are go for the EVA.
EV1 is go.
Ah, estão fazendo checklist.
Support 1 is go.
Support 2 is go.
Dragon SpaceX initiating secondary O2.
And with that news, our EVA has begun.
So you're going to hear it referred to as primary and secondary O2. Primary is going to be that primary flow of oxygen to pressurize. Secondary is largely putting oxygen into their suits to help.
Olha, eles deram início à missão.
When we turn on. And so our O2 flow timer has started. The EVAs start at 3:12 a.m. Pacific. I'll do the math on UTC in a little bit. So this first operation, or this first step in the operation, is a suit purge. So inside their suit, obviously when the visor is still open, it's still a nitrox environment. It's the same as the cabin. And since they're going to be at a lower pressure than what you can basically live at with oxygen levels, they're going to be on pure O2. They're going to be a 100% oxygen environment. And I mean, you guys were kind of in the same thing. And it's because like your suit, you can't move a suit around at 14.7 psi, can you?
No,
maybe you can, but like
no, that'd be pretty tough to do. And as we had talked about earlier, that's why that mobility is so important, because when that suit is pressurized like that, it can be challenging to move around.
Absolutely. So here on your screen, we can see the Polaris Dawn crew. Now with their visors down, the EVA has begun. We are beginning to flow that
Engenharia de garagem
through.
mandou
Now, we will, of course, bring these views to you as we have them, but due to ground station coverage, they do come in and out here and there.
Valeu, Engenharia de garagem, tamo junto.
That we can, we will certainly be sharing these with you.
Pãozinho na
I also wanted to point
chapa.
out quickly that the window near kids' feet was so much brighter than it was just even 5 minutes ago. We're going to be seeing that in stark contrast as soon as we get the EVA, or with the hatch open and EV1 out there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You mentioned that, because as you're going around the Earth as fast as you are, right, in 30 minutes or 45 minutes or so, you can be passing in and out of that sun and going into shadow. And so that brings its challenges as well, because the temperature can change pretty drastically just in those transitions from night to daylight.
Primeiro é o Jared.
So it's an interesting moment when you're passing through that time.
That's actually one of the reasons that the visors have this new coating on them, different than when you wore a similar helmet. That coating actually helps to insulate the individual inside the suit. So when they're looking at the sun,
63 pessoas que faltam para bater 227 mil inscritos. Se inscreve no canal e compartilha a live aí, galera. Bora bater 227 mil, bora!
Following primary O2 flow initiation.
EV1 copies. EV2 copies.
Dragon SpaceX, secondary flow purge complete. Close secondary O2 valves and report ready for suit pressurization.
EV1 closed. EV2 closed.
Support 1 closed.
Support 2 closed. SpaceX Dragon is ready for suit pressurization.
Initiating primary O2.
this is normal. This is with the airflow coming through. The crew members are on Vox, meaning that their microphone is on the whole time. So Sarah and Jared are going to be adjusting their audio levels as this flow continues to help regulate.
Aqui, ó, pressão do traje subindo, ó.
The Vox will kind of attenuate, so it'll sound like this now, but as we get through the spacewalk, it'll kind of come down.
Não, tá pressurizando. Aqui tem que subir 14.7.
Their voices are actually going to change too. Like, did that happen? Did that throw you, Mike, the first time you heard that?
Absolutely did, yeah, because you're talking and you're going, who is that? You don't realize how much different it can sound.
Valeu, cara, tamo junto.
Can sound in that lower pressure environment.
Yeah. Speaking of lower pressure, we can see the pressure changing.
O YouTube não vai mais recomendar a live, porque o algoritmo entendeu que a live não é boa. Isso é porque entrou, vocês estão vendo que tem 298 likes? Entrou um monte de gente, deixou o like e saiu. Aí o YouTube entendeu que a live não é legal, porque o pessoal entrou e saiu.
Within the cabin and then suit, obviously that's the pressure within the suits. So we'll actually be able to, and I think we've kind of been able to see it already, that these suits will inflate a little bit. Look a little different. And we were talking about the visors before, so when they're in the sunlight, that coating will help keep them cool and not overheat them, and then when they're in shadow, it'll help keep them warm. So,
and it's also like your sunglasses as well,
yeah.
Right? Serves that purpose.
14.7 aqui é porque tá na unidade imperial, isso daqui é pressão. 14.7 é uma pressão atmosférica, nível do mar.
This takes about 3.5 minutes, a little bit less, and then we're going to go through those actual suit leak checks. The crew will probably get a reminder they have to stay really still when we do those leak checks, and I always was kind of wondering, like, why the heck? And like, if you bend your arms, you're actually going to start, changing the volume inside the suit, and that'll cause pressure spikes. And so
that's right.
You got to stay really still.
Yep.
And then after we get through the leak checks, we're going to go through kind of that final pre-breathe, where they're going to hang out in that 100% O2 environment just to continue purging all of that excess nitrogen.
Suit pressure stable and purge complete. Activate secondary flow on. Report when complete.
Esse barulho é do microfone. O microfone deles lá.
Support 2 open.
Esse é o barulho do gás entrando no traje.
And right there, they finished the purge, and they did a quick reinitiation of that secondary flow check.
Response, close secondary flow, and report when complete.
EV1 closed. Support 2 closed.
handles that we see Jared holding on to, these were one of the additions.
63 pessoas que faltam agora para 227 mil inscritos, hein, galera? Compartilha a live aí.
Support 1, SpaceX contact.
We got you.
All right, copy. Got support 1.
Então, galera, calma, expliquei várias vezes para vocês. Aqui tem que bater 14.7 e aqui vai subir ainda para 700 km de altitude. Ele não vai sair agora, não. Vocês é que estão ansiosos.
Once again, that background noise is expected. That is the microphones and the flow of air within the suits. So we're trying to stay quiet to.
Tá só falando que eu acabei de falar para vocês. O barulho que vocês estão vendo é do microfone lá dentro e é do gás indo para dentro do traje, que está pressurizando o traje com nitrogênio e oxigênio.
And it is a little bit tough to hear. We just heard, though, that we got 4 good leak checks on their suits, and now they're going to be in this final suited pre-breathe. And so again, this is going to last about 19 or so minutes, and this is just to do kind of that final, get all of the excess nitrogen out. And we started pre-breathe just two hours after they got on orbit, just by gradually lowering the pressure.
Tem mó galerão aqui mesmo.
Pre-breathe, that's something that kind of evolved over time with the space station. Where were you when you were doing your spacewalks?
Yeah, so we were past the kind of the camp out phase of pre-breathe. But that's how we used to do it. And it's very similar to what the Polaris Dawn crew has been doing over the last couple of days. We'd actually have astronauts.
Ainda faltam 63 pessoas para bater 227 mil inscritos, galera. Bora bater nessa live, compartilha aí, deixa o like, se inscreva no canal, chame alguém para se inscrever no canal e compartilha a live aí. 63 pessoas não é muito.
It's worth noting along the lines of training and how the crew
Dragon vai ficar com 0.
That all 4 of our Polaris Dawn crew members,
a Dragon aqui é 0, Bruno.
Additional Polaris and SpaceX
o ideal é 14.7, que é a pressão nível do mar.
Tested these suits out and spent a bit of time at lower pressure just to help learn what that feels like and get used to it.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important about that is it's real, right? It's the first time that you're in that suit. And it's actually a vacuum around you, right? And there's just something mentally that I think is important to put people through those moments before you actually have to experience the first time in space.
Yep.
We saw some of the unique ways we train the crew for this. And I mean, training for space station spacewalks, I'm still really upset I never got in the pool. That looks like one of the coolest parts of being an astronaut is not being in space, but just doing some of this training.
Yeah, Dan, I tell you, I can still remember the first time I stuck my head underwater, not in the suit, but for diving. But you can hear the comms of everything that's going on through the water like that, and it just gives me goosebumps to think about that. It was a really neat environment, but it looks like these guys had a pretty neat way to train as well with the harness that would hoist them up and out and all of that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we definitely created some rigorous new training for the best we could simulate an EVA while still on Earth with hoists and it was a lot of fun to watch them train.
Yeah. Back on board with cameras in 3 minutes.
So our core just called up. We'll get
Não divulgaram o sandbox.
Back on board in about 3 minutes. As Kate talked about earlier, we're using ground stations for our video coverage. All of our communication with the astronauts are through TDRS, so tracking and data relay satellites. So we'll have constant audio, but that video, we need those ground stations. But right now they're in that pre-breathe. That final pre-breathe still. We started our spacewalk about 13 minutes ago. We initiated O2.
Por que eles precisam estar com a mesma pressão que o nível do mar 14.7? Porque a gente nasceu aqui. É para ficar o mais igual possível à superfície da Terra. Nós estamos aqui, ao nível do mar, com uma quantidade de nitrogênio e oxigênio no ar disponível para a gente respirar e ficar vivo. Então, dentro do traje tem que ser o mais parecido com o que a gente vive aqui na superfície. Entendeu?
What's going through your head when you're like, man,
it's happening.
The air's going out.
It's really happening.
It's happening.
Yeah, I tell you, it is a long process to get to this point, right? They've been prepping for this for 2 days, right? And one of the hardest things I found about the spacewalks is the waiting.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait, right? You are so ready to go out and to do this mission and to go out that hatch, and it just takes time. And I think that's one of the things you talked about, my fifth versus my first. Your fifth, you kind of understand how long it's going to take. You have a better appreciation for how long it's going to take.
Travou no 13.2, é porque não precisa ser 100%.
When you're kind of waiting through this
tem que ser um pouco menos, entendeu?
Airlock to depressurize. Just kind of find yourself just floating there, kind of zoning out, trying to keep yourself calm and relaxed, and until that moment when it's game time.
Yeah. Now, just a quick mention, we're about a minute out until we get those views back inside the cabin. The view that we had previously was our Dragon tracker, which, if you want to see where Dragon is...
Vocês lembram quando eu fui lá no Alma, 5.000 metros de altitude? Lá a pressão atmosférica é menor. A quantidade de oxigênio no cérebro diminui. Só que seu corpo se acostuma com aquela pressão menor. São 5.000 metros de altitude, vocês lembram? Quando eu fui lá no Alma,
basically,
no
Sarah
Chile.
and Kid have switched their seats for the EVA.
Então, mesmo numa pressão menor, porque tem outras altitudes, tem 3.000 metros também, galera, tem cidade até. São Pedro de Atacama, no Chile, também está uma altitude maior. Você mesmo numa altitude maior, com uma pressão mais baixa, o ser humano sobrevive. O corpo vai se adaptando. No caso do traje espacial aqui, ele fica um pouco menos do que a pressão atmosférica.
Anna being support 2, Kid being support 1.
Para tu não ficar igual um bonecão do posto.
EV2 and Jared EV1.
Aí melhora a mobilidade, entendeu? Se meter 14.7 aqui, que é o ideal, tá? Mas se meter 14.7 atrapalha a movimentação dos braços, mover os dedos na mão e tal.
Kid and Anna will
Aí
function
fica
as the eyes and ears.
90, 80%,
they will be performing their own list of operations during or their own list of tasks during the EVA. So while Sarah and Jared are going to be the ones that are, partially egressing the capsule once that forward door is open, Kid and Anna will also be performing an EVA in their own right.
That's right. And we talked about it earlier, first time 4 people exposed to the vacuum of space, like that's
Deixa eu ver quantos inscritos faltam agora.
That's going to be a really cool first, not just for us and Dragon. But we are going to be getting views back really soon. We're, again, just in that final pre-breathe
Agora
step
faltam
right now.
64
And then we're going to
pessoas.
start venting Dragon down to near vacuum. So we're going to have a couple of different
Faltam
valves that are gonna
64 pessoas para
open up, and the
227 mil
atmosphere
inscritos.
inside Dragon's going to start going overboard out into
Bom
the
dia,
vacuum of space. Now,
P0MNI
crew to the ground, they
underline.
can control, they can pause that cabin venting if they need to. We can pause and resume. The most likely reason is for ear equalization, is again, you're going through a lot of pressure changes anytime you do a spacewalk. And so if you've ever flown on an airplane and your ears pop, you've experienced just a little bit of what they might be going through right now. Once we start cabin venting, if we terminate or abort the spacewalk during that venting, we cannot start again. We talked a little bit earlier. about how consumables are like the thing that really drives you. And for us, we don't have a great big airlock with this, with, you know, a full station's worth of oxygen and stuff like that. So
Seated pre-breathe complete. Confirm pre-breath preventing at pre-breathe complete.
Elane Gonçalves, seja bem-vinda, virou membro do canal.
Copy, initiating cabin venting.
There we go.
That is great news.
Exciting.
So that breathing of increase, that pre-breathe where they were breathing increased oxygen, we just heard that.
Ó, é agora, hein? Vai despressurizar agora, hein?
All four
Na Dragon.
gave the go. So
Ó, caindo aqui, ó.
Vent the cabin.
yeah, in total, this will take about 8 minutes, and you can, the graphics you see on your screen, that's live telemetry, everybody. So you can see the pressure inside Dragon starting to tick down.
Diminuindo pouquinho do traje.
Tick down as well is what we're really trying to maintain is a pressure differential. And so with these suits, we're going to be hovering right around 5 or so. You might see about 4.
A ideia é diminuir pouquinho de junto com o outro para poder manter a mesma sensação do corpo.
See it go up a little bit when they reinitiate the secondary flow.
Existe uma pressão externa e uma interna. Essa aqui é a dentro do traje. Pode ver o braço dele como é que tá. Tá diminuindo a da Dragon, diminuindo do traje para poder ir devagarzinho. Senão explode tudo, cara.
Difference between we're at 4.2 and they're going to be at 5, it can actually make quite a bit of difference just in how hard it can be to move the suit around, etc.
Yeah, this crew got to, and that's something we can simulate, you know, in a vacuum chamber or even just in 14.7. You can simulate that differential pressure. Getting calls from the crew, they're monitoring along.
Deixa eu ver se as pessoas se inscreveram no canal. Pô, o pessoal tá se desinscrevendo, cara. Agora faltam 60 pessoas de novo. 70. Se inscreve aí, galera. Não é pra se desinscrever não, poxa. Agora faltam 70 pessoas de novo para bater 227 mil inscritos.
Check your gloves, that kind of stuff.
We did. I will tell you, one of the interesting things watching this live right now, the difference is how quickly the depressurization is happening here versus what my experience was. And so you talked about being able to clear your ears and all that. You're not giving a lot of time for your ears to adapt to that lower pressure. So this seems pretty quick to me.
Yeah, breaking new ground with this, new suits, new operations for everything. We're at about 4.5. We're going to see that tick down. It's going to get down to just under 1, and it's not going to go all the way down. And then what we'll actually see is we've got a capability to open the hatch automatically. We've got a motor in it, but Jared's actually going to give it a little tug to kind of break the seal, break any of the kind of the stiction in the hatch itself, and that's going to kind of take the capsule down to its final vent. Before Sarah, who's at the displays, she's going to command the hatch to actually open.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, there will be slightly more pressure inside the capsule, so really just helping.
4 PSI, seat pressures look good.
SpaceX copies 4.
So Jared really can't open the hatch all in one fluid motion, so we will see him release that pressure slightly before being able to open it completely.
And I think one of the important things, you guys, I think I talked earlier about you put some more restraint devices inside the capsule from when I flew on it. And that's extremely important because there's going to be some force that Jared's going to have to be pulling down on, and he needs to be able to anchor his feet somehow. Otherwise, he's going to pull and it's not going to go anywhere. And so the new restraint devices in there, we're going to see how important that's going to become here when he tries to open that hatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Galera, deixa o like, compartilhem a live aí e peça para alguém se inscrever. Faltam 74 pessoas para bater 227 mil inscritos. Fala que tá tendo a primeira caminhada espacial privada. É, galera, vem pro canal.
To work out all the kinks and really test this for the first time.
Deixa eu ver se alguém me marcou no Instagram aqui para compartilhar.
A whole lot more information than they had back then. We know you need handrails, or it's going to get real hard real quick.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
We did also hear Dragon's moving into its EVA orientation. Essentially, we're going to point the trunk at the sun under 3 psi.
I think it's also interesting, you notice that the depressurization has slowed down a little bit, right? So as we get to this lower pressure, it's just taking it longer for
o Alisson mandou 5 membership pra galera aí, ó.
And TV1 com check.
TV1, loud and clear.
Loud and clear as well.
And also hear the Vox starting to adjust its levels.
Yeah.
That flow of oxygen has not stopped, but the microphone's kind of adjusted and it's getting a little bit clearer. And yeah, keep an ear out. You might hear their voices start to like tenor down a little bit.
I do think that's an important point, Dan, that how important comm is, right? And when it's compromised a little bit just by that extra airflow and the Vox not keeping up with it right away, how challenging it was just to hear those calls, and they can be some pretty important calls.
Of course.
Comm is just critical.
We can see Dragon capsule now approaching close to 2 psia. Like Dan mentioned earlier, that's going to get to just under 1. It's incredible to think that, the Dragon capsule in all of its power and glory and awesomeness, the new capsule is around their bodies, right?
Se bater 500 pessoas, manda mais.
From
não vai bater, não.
Vacuum of space and,
não vai bater porque o pessoal no início que deu like saiu da live. Aí o algoritmo entendeu que a live não é legal.
Holding that pressure, it still
então o
looks
YouTube escondeu a live.
For lack of a better word.
Por isso que tem mais like do que pessoas assistindo.
Yeah, you really have 4 mini spaceships in there.
I guess that means we have 4 aliens in there too.
Yeah, that's right.
Dragon SpaceX, less than 1 psi from hatch operating pressure. We have a TDRS handover in 2 minutes. We are going to wait until after the TDRS handover to command into hatch open prep.
One copy.
And I think you heard that, the TDRS handover. So there's going to be a short period of time there where they're out of comm, and it's kind of interesting because we're at a very critical phase as well. And so you want to make sure you have all data and the ability to talk to the astronauts before you actually take that next critical step.
Tá normal a pressão do traje assim, é assim mesmo.
We'll see it. We're seeing that pressure continue to tick down. Dragon originally designed to be able to still operate in a vacuum. That was some of the emergency situations I know you trained for, Mike. We did make some modifications to this one to essentially turn Dragon into a functional airlock. We added some additional vent paths. We do use like some of the same ones that you guys use to like pressurize the vestibule and stuff like that. That are actually in the hatch, but we've got an extra one in there to be able to essentially do that depress as quickly.
Vai ficar em 5 aqui, ó. Tirei 6.2 menos 1.5.
A little under 1.
4.7, não é isso?
We're gonna see Jared kind of jump into action. He's gonna
não, 4.7.
The hatch, and then he's gonna give it a little pull to break the initial stiction, and then we're gonna be able to see Sarah.
1.5 psia. All suits look good.
One copy.
Now, it's one thing to note that while we have been progressing through this pretty quickly, we did have the capability to pause if any of the 4 crew members needed to take a moment to, let their ears come to equilibrium or just kind of get comfortable again. We did have that option, but everything has been going really well so far. We haven't had to pause cabin venting.
And if you're just tuning in, heck of a time to do it. We're about
good timing.
A little under 28 minutes into the spacewalk today, which again, that started when we started flowing O2 to the suits of these crew members. That was at 3:12 Pacific, 10:12 UTC. We just heard that Dragon's now in its EVA attitude.
Handover complete.
So again, we've got Dragon's trunk pointing towards the sun.
We are with you on board, watching through the cross view.
That was SpaceX core Arthur Berrialt, just letting the crew know that where the cameras are on inside and which camera is looking at them.
Lá no Alma.
It's so fun to hear Arthur's
Deixa eu converter aqui para ver quanto que dá. Acho que dá 9.
Arthur
Deixa eu
was
ver
an
aqui.
intern. Started out as an intern.
Tô falando do Alma porque foi o lugar mais absurdo que eu já estive. Tem um vídeo no canal aí do Alma.
Very similar to Sarah, who also started as an
8.
intern.
Yes, yeah.
Lá no Alma, 5.000 metros de altitude, a pressão lá é 8. Aí, mano, tu sente uma pressão na cabeça, como se fosse esmagar. Aí eu fiquei com um tanque de oxigênio no nariz.
Inside the capsule and on the cruise suits. Also going to
tá aí, tem vídeo aí no canal.
That optimal pointing for communications with the TDRS satellites.
Então eles ali em 5.8, por isso que tem que ter um treinamento, velho. É foda, tem que ter um treinamento para o corpo se acostumar com a ideia.
We're at 1. You can see the suit pressure is ticked down too. There's about 4.7 difference between the suit and the ambient cabin there in Dragon.
That umbilical that you see there just to the side of Jared, that will continue to flow the air into his suit as well as provide telemetry and communications connection. That's also where we have the safety harness built in as well, so it's able to...
Dragon SpaceX, cabin pressure below hatch operating limit. Stand by for transition to hatch open prep.
Here we go. Mike, did you get to open the hatch?
I did. You did? Yes. Yeah. When you go out as
EVA hatch open front.
Dragon SpaceX, for an EVA hatch open prep. Confirm crew ready to open hatch.
That is great news.
Por que eles escolheram 700 quilômetros? Porque eles querem ficar dentro do cinturão de Van Allen.
Excited.
Mike, as you mentioned before, that continuous communication.
Caiu negócio lá na SpaceX.
We do have a crowd gathering outside of Mission Control here in Hawthorne.
Aí, ó, agora, hein, galera?
In their excitement, somebody dropped a cup. We can see our commander, Jared Isaacman, now turning the crank, which allows the that top hatch to open. We'll see him give it a pretty heavy...
EV1, hatch is visually indicating open.
62 pessoas para bater 227 mil inscritos. Se inscreva no canal aí, galera, e compartilhe a live.
Should see him give that hatch a pretty strong jolt to release that stiction.
É sério, o cinturão de Van Allen, é sério, não é zoeira não. 700 km vai colocar eles na posição bem na meiuca ali, ó. pá, no talo, no cinturão de Van Allen.
Now unlatched.
A missão é testar o traje, então tem que ser a maior quantidade de radiação possível. Com a maior intensidade possível, é para testar o traje.
Mike talked about, you see him getting his feet set.
That's right. Dan, you'd asked if I'd gotten open the hatch. So when you go
Dragon
out
tá
as
zero,
EV1,
hein?
just like Jared here as EV1, that's typically the role for you is to open that hatch. And
You guys have to draw straws, fight over who gets. It's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Porra, caiu a qualidade.
Now, for those of you that have just recently joined, as you can see, we have successfully depressurized the Dragon capsule down to 0 PSIA. You see that in the bottom left corner of your screen. Our 4 Polaris Dawn crew members have gone through the O2 flow, and we see Commander Jared Isaacman now standing by to open that top hatch. The nose cone is already open. It opened just shortly after the crew got into orbit. So,
Dragon SpaceX target pressure reached.
Vai ficar em 4.8. Ele acabou de falar, target pressure reached.
Jared now opening Dragon resilience into space.
So we saw some motion on the hatch. Again, he's just giving it kind of that initial tug. And then Sarah gets to push the button to swing that hatch open.
Much more movement there on the forward hatch. Must be pretty exciting for Jared because that center part of
Dragon SpaceX, that's a good brace. We're going to have you repeat the operation.
Center of the hatch actually has a window.
SpaceX, the hatch is unseated.
Copy.
Give it another call.
Abre ele, hein?
The hatch is several inches.
Ela!
Okay, right.
Copy. We see it.
Looking out that tiny window there in the forward hatch, knowing he is going to have a much bigger window in just minutes.
Qual distância eles vão poder ir da espaçonave? Nenhuma, vai ficar ali quietinho na maciota. No sapatinho ali quietinho. Qual a distância? Eles vão ficar presos por esse cabo aqui, ó.
So again, one of the reasons we had Jared do that was to...
Dragon SpaceX, we're actually watching that hatch. We're going to have you repeat the last operation.
Sounds like they're going to have him repeat them. One of the reasons we're doing that is just to kind of vent any of that residual atmosphere.
And EV1, you are go for manual hatch open.
Manual hatch
Sounds like
open.
we got our first audible of the day. As we said, that we can open the hatch.
Opening the hatch manually.
We could open the hatch. We could open the hatch automatically, or we can do it manually. And so they just gave Jared the go to open that hatch manually. So we just went out of ground station reach, so we'll get the views back.
Wow.
We'll get the views back real shortly. And then the hatch will get
we'll
open.
See a hatch open.
And hopefully we see it. Yeah, hopefully we see a hatch open.
The hatch is open.
SpaceX copies, hatch open.
That is fantastic news for those that...
SpaceX EV1, I'm looking at the seals.
Perdeu a conexão do Starlink. Tá fora da cobertura, tá esperando voltar.
Copy on hatch still report.
O áudio é RF. Por isso que faz o pip.
Yeah, that seal that you just heard him talking about, it's such a important part for the end of the EVA, right? So that when they close that hatch again, you get a good... Get a good seal of the hatch.
Sem vídeo, sem palmas. Quero vídeo. Quero imagens.
SpaceX.
Aê!
Command open forward hatch. This is going to stall it open.
There is our first view of the forward hatch, wide open to space.
Agora falta a parte de fora ali ainda.
If you just jumped
Tem
in,
1,6 milhão de pessoas assistindo a live deles lá.
Dragon. First view from a helmet cam.
Aí, ó.
Looking out.
Câmera do capacete, hein?
EV1 is go to continue.
Vai lá, vai lá, vai, 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 vai.
That structure you see there is...
Vai, meu filho.
SpaceX copies, we're with you in your helmet cam.
Once again, this helmet cam, that structure we see is the spacewalker. This is Jared now egressing through the forward hatch of Dragon Resilience.
FPV, hein? First person view aí.
So the first views of the first ever commercial spacewalk.
I'm at the bottom of the mobility aid. Progressing.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
Olha como é que a câmera fica estouradaça, velho. Ô, louco, velho.
SpaceX. Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world.
Galera gritando.
Now, SpaceX, EV1, I'm going to step into Test Matrix 1. Single-handed mobility demonstration.
Commander Jared Isaacman now emerging
Copy,
from...
we're with you in Test Matrix 1, watching from the nose cone.
Mano.
Up, down, left, and right are threes. Pitch and roll are 3. Yaw is a 2. Switching. Single-handed operations are...
Coração deve estar...
Switching to left hand.
Mano, olha como é que ele tá movendo a mão, velho.
Up, down, left, and right are 3s, maybe a 2. Pitch is a 4. Roll is a 2. Yaw is a 2.
So these are the suit mobility checks that Jared is performing.
Single-handed operations, dynamic and with disturbance are all adequate.
É, ele tá seguindo os checklist do que era pra fazer. Por isso que ele tá movendo o braço em diferentes direções, o pulso.
SpaceX copies Test Matrix 1 and HUD readout.
Crew ops check, EV1's good. EV1 good. Question good. Okay, stepping into vertical translation. We're going to start with the horizontal bars. All right, we're going to transition over to vertical. I'd say vertical and horizontal are equally workable, slightly favors horizontal. I'm going to do a max reach. Left hand's at the top.
É muito foda, velho.
At the midpoint, you have good video.
We just lost our live video. Stand by 1.
Okay, switching over to max reach. Switching to.
Porra, Starlink.
SpaceX, I'm holding up with the max reach.
NEV1, go ahead and continue the operation. We'll let you know we're back on with live video.
Copy that. And for your awareness, max reach, leviate, and the mid bar. And that's test matrix 2 is complete. HUD readout, 5.3 PSI, 33.9 Celsius, 50% RH.
Copy, test matrix complete and HUD readout.
O cara tá mandando as diretrizes pra ele.
Stepping into test matrix 3, hands-free demonstration.
EV1 SpaceX for ingress time.
Ele tá mandando as diretrizes do que ele tem que fazer ali.
Recommended ingress time of O2 flow plus 7 minutes.
Porra, Starlink tá travando, mano.
And Dragon, we're back on live video from the nose cone.
Copy that, SpaceX. And SpaceX EV1, I would say the hands-free demonstration is very comparable to the trainer in terms of the foot restraints.
SpaceX copies. And EV1, when you have time, if you'd like to return to the reach demonstration, we'll take a look at that with the live video.
Jonatas Piffer mandou R$19,90. É a primeira vez que um QA vai para o espaço. O cenário de teste mais fantástico da história.
Porra, muito foda, Jonatas.
Copy, test matrix.
Valeu pelo Pix, cara. Obrigado pelo help.
And let's get a quick crew off check. EV1's good. EV2's good. I'm good. 4-2's good. Copy that. Okay,
primeira vez que o QA vai pro espaço.
Seems to be about the same. Top of the mobility aid, and then the mid-road.
Copy, we see it.
Checking up from the bottom.
Pô, muito foda, cara.
Can you go back, SpaceX?
Negative. We got about 1 minute until EV1 ingress.
Copy that, 1 minute. It's gorgeous. You wanted to see the guys to get the umbilical around his right foot.
A câmera do capacete aí de novo.
Checking out your helmet cam now.
Faltam 60 pessoas, galera. Se inscreve no canal, galera. 60 pessoas para bater 227 mil, poxa.
Copy, we're turning nose cone. See you looking at us.
All right, we're coming up about that O2 flow timer time. Crew check for ingress. EV1's good. EV2's good.
Esse isso é quando corta a conexão, tem alguma interferência, acontece alguma interferência na conexão RF ali do áudio, via rádio. Aí dá esse sempre dá susto essa porra. Ingress. Agora é a vez da
And SpaceX EV1.
Sarah Gillis.
We've taken a quick look here at the hatch seals. From what I can see so far, they look pretty good.
Copy on the hatch seals and stand by for transition to 3-off reset.
Copy that, SpaceX. Good. And EV1 is clear.
All right, so Jared back inside. We heard him going through what's called the test matrix. It's basically just a bunch of maneuvers using different hands, using the foot mobility.
3-off reset is in progress.
Calling out numbers. Right now, though, we're doing, you just heard Arthur call up 3-off reset. So we didn't use any of the forward thrusters while Jared was out there. We're re-enabling them, putting us back in our perfect attitude before Sarah gets ready to go out the door. Fun thing to note, it's still not a perfect vacuum inside a Dragon. It's an open loop system, so oxygen is kind of getting dumped into the cabin as this is going on. So you got a higher pressure in Dragon than you have outside, so we're not worried about thruster pluming.
Yeah, now you mentioned Sarah, just like Jared, she will have 10 to 15 minutes outside, perform those same sets of mobility tests as Jared. Like we heard the Corps do with EV1, they will call out when there's 1 minute remaining.
Quando eles voltam? 15 de setembro.
Complete EV2, go for egress.
Jaime, todos eles irão sair? Não.
There's Sarah's clear.
Só o Isaac, o Jared Isaacman, que foi o que saiu agora, e agora vai a Sarah Gillis.
EV2 is going to go stand in the door and then step outside.
Now this test matrix that Jared just performed and the one that Sarah's about to perform, they have both committed to memory in order to execute these. We saw it being done pretty efficiently. I can't believe how quickly that time went by. Mike, we were talking about how your spacewalks were hours and these guys only have 10 to 15 minutes and it just like that.
Faltam 57 pessoas para bater 227 mil inscritos, galera. Se inscreve no canal aí, poxa.
I see a little bit of a bulge between 14 and 13.
So you're hearing Sarah call out some more of the seal check there as she's exiting out.
It's reseated.
SpaceX copies that report. Good fix.
So this was something we knew might happen. And Sarah
between 28 and 27.
Copy.
The crew trained on exactly what to do in this scenario. Just pop it back in.
And
Reseat
one
it.
final between 19 and 18. That might be best reseated with hatch closure.
SpaceX copies. Can you repeat the location?
After EVA complete. Between 19 and 18.
All right, copy. I'll track that and ask again when you're ingress.
Qual a razão de só dois? Porque não dá tempo de ir todo mundo. E tem que ter dois dentro também, né?
Is proceeding with egress.
Super exciting to see this. Our fellow SpaceXer, Sarah Gillis, now about to make her spacewalk.
Sarah Gillis.
EV1, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Like we mentioned, Sarah will be performing the same set of mobility tests. So we will do the same. Try to stand by and listen to those comms.
Caraca, 2.2 milhões de visualizações. De pessoas, assim, 2.2 milhões de pessoas assistindo.
Before, a lot of us work here because we want to do this.
All right, stepping into test matrix 1 for single-handed mobility.
Really cool to see one of our own out there. That's awesome.
And EV2 for awareness, we're watching from the nose cone.
And copy all. I would say in all three translation axes, I'm having certainly cross-coupled movements. Forward, back, I am inducing a bit of a roll. Similarly with left, right, and up, down, a bit of a pitch.
Essa abertura aqui é muito difícil, né? Tipo, essa aqui assim, ó, do ombro. Igual eu tô fazendo na webcam aqui, ó. Essa abertura aqui é bem difícil. Essa daqui assim. Você vê que eles movem. Até nas caminhadas da ISS também é assim. Essa do ombro aqui, eles sempre ficam meio travada e mexe mais assim, ó. E o pulso bem pouco também. Aí girar aqui assim é difícil pra caramba, assim. Isso parece muito um robô esquisito, tanto de negacionista que vai falar besteira. Ué, cara, você tá no bostil, você quer o quê, velho? É óbvio que vão falar um monte de merda desse troço. Parece que não sabe o país que mora.
From left hand, stepping into vertical translation.
SpaceX copies. And EV2 for awareness, we're tracking an ingress time at O2 flow, 59 minutes.
Mais flexível que o da NASA? Não sei, cara. Só de olho assim, não consigo diferenciar, não. Eu já assisti bastante Caminhada Espacial lá da ISS. Não consigo diferenciar muito, não. Parece igual. Isso aí vai depender mais dos sensores ali que vão registrar em números, né? A mobilidade.
And I'm adequately able to stabilize my body with single-hand disturbances.
Ó, o cotovelo, tá vendo como é que move rápido?
Left and right. Stepping into max reach, do you have visual?
Affirm, we have visual on the nose cone.
Copy from bar 4 to bar 2, from top down. And similar reach from bar.
Por que os astronautas parecem sempre duros? Porque o traje está pressurizado de maneira diferente e tá cheio de oxigênio puro ali dentro. Então ali dentro dá uma inflada. Você tem uma pressão externa de 0, que é o vácuo do espaço, versus uma pressão interna do traje que dá uma inflada. Essa pressão interna ali da... Olha o meu braço aqui, ó, tipo... O traje está aqui assim, ó. Aí ele dá uma inflada e fica assim, ó.
Comms are through satellites, but we've got ground stations for video on Dragon. As you can see in the tracker, we just flew over New Zealand.
E aí isso tira a sua mobilidade, porque você tem que fazer mais força.
no ground stations in the middle of the Pacific.
Forward are actually pretty good.
We're hearing the voice of mission specialist Sarah Gillis.
Uma boa maneira de você entender isso.
Igor Castro mandou R$10. Bom dia, Gomes. Fui aprovado em Engues Mecatrônica na UTF-PR, mas não sei se vou cursar, pois é integral e já trabalho como dev full-time.
Complicado. Federal suga a tua vida toda. Vai ser foda conciliar os dois.
And you could see the Earth dark, and we flew into like an orbital.
Uma maneira de vocês entenderem bem isso, a velocidade com que você move o braço no ar, tipo agora, onde você está aí agora, você move o braço muito rápido, comparado se você estiver sei lá, dentro da piscina. Você concorda comigo que dentro da piscina, o teu braço debaixo d'água, você quiser mover o teu braço, por mais que você faça força, você não vai conseguir ter a mesma velocidade que você fazer isso aqui no ar. Você concorda comigo?
Copy that, EV2. And once you are able to engage, disengage, we'll actually have you start ingress. We're just over 59 minutes O2 flow.
Então, é essa sensação que eu quero que vocês entendam. Quando você infla ali o traje, ó, a Dragon tá em 0 aqui, que tá aberta, igual o vácuo do espaço. E aí você tem 5.2 ali, ó, dentro do traje. Olha o diferencial de pressão que está acontecendo aqui. É essa a ideia de quando você está se movendo dentro da piscina. Você vê que você não precisaria de muito mais força para mover na mesma velocidade o braço como você move no ar, fora da piscina. É a mesma coisa ali. Então por isso que fica parecendo esse boneco assim. Que é uma outra... Só para acrescentar, pensa que em vez de dentro de uma piscina, você vai entrar dentro do esgoto. Sabe, aquele piscinão de esgoto. Já viu os caras trabalhando com isso no YouTube? Como é que você se movimenta ali dentro?
And see if the handle has been stowed in the do not stow window and report if you can see that.
Entendeu?
I think it's just outside.
Copy, just outside. Thank you.
Just outside the range.
Movimento parecendo que tá tudo cagado. Não, mas é sério, pô, tô falando sério.
Copy, your go to address.
No, mostly between 12 and 13 right now.
SpaceX copies at 12. If you can, your go to address those.
Copy and worse.
These numbers being called out represent the location around. Yeah, the location around the circular hatch, just identifying where these bulges are. So Sarah's now reseating that seal.
Not quite able to reach the back one, so we'll proceed with clearing for hatch closure.
Just like that, we're already hearing about hatch closure. It's incredible that these two EVAs, just in 2 blinks of the eyes, are...
ED2 is clear of hatch, please.
2 checks.
On your screen there is SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On duty tonight is Arthur Berrialt. This is the voice to the crew throughout their operations. Of course, you know, everyone has to sleep, so we have different shifts for Core. But Mike, your time in Dragon.
Driving close.
Gabriel Hernandes mandou um superchat de 10 reais. Tudo CGI da NASA, bom dia. Mas isso aqui é CGI da SpaceX, né? Não é da NASA. Da NASA não tem nada a ver com isso aqui.
Once we get ground station coverage, again, we will be sure to bring you views within the Dragon capsule. But right now, Sarah is closing the forward hatch.
It sounds like we might give the motor a try.
Confirm the hatch is visually indicating closed.
Command hatch is verified latch.
Hey, commanding EVA hatch closed. EVA hatch closed. All Dracos enabled.
Dragon SpaceX, we see EVA hatch closed and pressure indicates good hatch seal. Stand by for transition to EVA repress 1.
And EV1 copies. Everyone check secondary O2 valves closed.
Copy.
And then support 1, I'm good. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
41 closed.
14 closed.
So a couple of real big moments right there. Sarah was able to make sure.
We're in EVA repress 1.
Tem a impressão de que seria mais leve. Por que você tinha a impressão que ficava mais leve?
Spot. We got the hatch closed. You can see.
We're out of a half PSI for 8.3.
See the pressure starting to tick up.
Tá pressurizando de novo. Starlink caiu de novo.
Just a final confirmation. Everyone confirm secondary O2 valves are closed. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
41 closed.
14 closed.
Copy that. And we're through 1 for 8.3.
All right, so each of the crew just closed those secondary O2 valves on their umbilicals. Again, that was primarily for cooling. During the spacewalk itself, the suit's still pressurized by that.
Não, você tem que imaginar, tipo, ó, aqui tá meu braço. Você tem a pressão do ar
right after they get the hatch closed,
e tem uma pressão interna dentro do braço para fora.
Oxygen, it's an open
Ali você tem a pressão externa que é zero, vácuo.
Positive pressure response showing that
e a pressão interna do que estava 4.7, né? Ele está tentando abrir o traje. A pressão interna é maior que a externa, então o traje vai expandir. É como se estivesse dando soquinhos nas paredes internas do traje. Então ele expande, que ele tenta explodir, porque a pressão interna é maior que a externa. Sabe quando tem aqueles filmes que você vê que abre a porta de um avião e vai sugando tudo para fora? Esse é o diferencial de pressão. Por que isso acontece? Porque a pressão interna dentro do avião ali, ela está configurada para ficar mais parecida com o que a gente conhece no nível do mar. Só que lá no alto, na altitude de cruzeiro, a pressão externa é menor. Porque você está mais pro alto, tá? Altitude de cruzeiro, 10 km, vai. Então a pressão interna do avião é mais forte que a externa. Aí nos filmes, quando você vê, tô falando dos filmes que aí cria uma intuição pra galera entender. Você não vê as paradas tudo sugando pra fora? Porque a pressão interna é maior que a externa, então tenta expandir. Fica jogando as coisas pra fora porque tenta expandir. Mesma coisa ali, a pressão interna do traje é maior que a externa. Então ele expande. Ele tenta abrir. E aí quando acontece isso de tentar abrir, e você com um braço ali naquele meio, as tuas articulações travam. A articulação trava.
as they're taking in that oxygen, they're breathing out the CO2. And
Por isso que tu viu, tu vê o cara com a mão assim e ele tentando mover. O movimento aqui do ombro, que tem esse músculo aqui que é mais fraco, né? Esse movimento aqui do ombro para fazer isso aqui, ó. Você precisa de muito mais força para fazer isso daqui do que isso aqui, ó. Esse movimento aqui exige menos força que esse aqui, ó. Do ombro. O do cotovelo, você precisa de menos energia do que esse aqui. A articulação é que ela trava. E aí fica meio duro assim de você conseguir se mover. Você tem que fazer muito força para se mover.
And when you put on that spacesuit, it's much more challenging to move around with that on.
Yeah, and what they were really doing was just kind of like you put your hand on Skywalker, and then you're changing your pitch, you're doing translation up and down and everything. And then the one that I think is kind of cool is max reach, because like just going like that is.
Então a pessoa precisa estar em forma para ir para o espaço? Sim, já viu algum astronauta gordo?
Interesting is you heard, I think it was Sarah talk about the horizontal rail versus the vertical and how much easier that was for her to grab onto or utilize.
É sério, eu não tô zoando não, pô.
Simple things like that.
Já viu algum astronauta gordão? Não tem.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
But out there in the vacuum and in the microgravity environment, it does become a much bigger deal.
And you know, Dan and I, we've never been in space, so we certainly appreciate all of your expertise that you'd be able to share with us throughout this morning's operations and contributing your 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was great to be here. Just an incredible moment. Not only for the Polaris Dawn, for all of SpaceX, for humanity, because it's just one of those small steps that's taken us that much closer to being that interplanetary species. So thank you very much for having me around.
Our pleasure. Awesome. You're welcome back anytime.
Excellent. All right.
Good to see you, Hopper.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, so repress is continuing. We're a little over 4 PSI right now. Again, we're going to keep that going up until we're a little over 8. And then we're going to change our repress.
Mas eles fazem exercício para trabalhar esses músculos aqui.
For shorter periods of time, that's just going to help that atmosphere mix as we get the crew kind of back up to their normal cabin atmosphere that they were.
Qual é, vocês estão zoando aí, cara. Sérgio não caberia nem na cápsula, imagina passar pela abertura com roupa inflada.
We launched them and
Sérgio tá bem mais magro agora.
2 seconds to acclimate and enjoy their cute 0G indicator, and immediately stepped into the pre-breathe in order to prepare for today's activity. And really, like you said, let them acclimate and.
Deixa eu ver quantas pessoas faltam pra gente bater
os. Was demonstrated today by the fact that we were able to step through all of the steps today without having to take the optional and available breaks to allow crew members to adjust during.
54 pessoas, galera.
We're gonna get something there.
54 pessoas. Se inscreve no canal e compartilha aí a live, poxa.
So yeah, just the fact that the all 4 crew members were able to just go right along and didn't have to pause as the option was available. I think it's a testament to the preparation that they did before and during.
Uma pessoa bombada conseguiria se mover melhor? Eu acho que na verdade nem pode, velho. Uma pessoa bombada passaria mal.
Keep counting the PSI up until we get to about 8. We are going to do another leak check on the way up to our nominal cabin pressure.
Sabia? Bodybuilder passaria mal ali.
Introduce atmosphere, you're introducing temperature changes, not just pressure changes, and so we'll get to a nice, pretty stable point when we're at 8, and then we'll let it hang out there for a couple of minutes. Let the thermals kind of cancel out. That'll take about 5 minutes.
Porque o corpo está super acostumado com alta circulação de oxigenação. Ali você está num ambiente de baixa oxigenação, cara.
We let crew get out of their seats, move about the cabin, anything like that. Want to make sure Dragon is fully recovered.
Bodybuilder ia desmaiar na hora. Provavelmente.
And actually, the info that you were talking about, you see it there on your screen live with that telemetry there in the bottom left and bottom right hand corners. We can see the Dragon capsule and the suit pressures continuing to rise. It is incredible that we've only been in the EVA for 1 hour and 13 minutes. It flew by so
Exatamente,
quickly.
justamente por ter muito mais massa magra. Tem muita massa corporal do que uma pessoa comum, né? Bodybuilder.
I'm sure for Jared and Sarah, it flew by
Então, o nível de exigência de oxigenação é muito alto.
PSI for PPO2, so what we're really tracking before we
Então,
get
a pessoa provavelmente desmaiaria na hora.
The actual, like just the straight up what the absolute pressure is inside, but also what the partial pressure of oxygen is. We want to make sure you don't have a hypoxic environment inside. Basically, you want to get them. They're going to be pretty much right back at the atmosphere that we're walking around in right now before they get their suits off.
Nem gordo, nem bombado, galera. Tem que ser magro normal, porém com os músculos fortes. Não é com músculo gigante, é com músculo forte.
With the repress operation, we'll see a couple of other things happen with the suits. They'll do kind of a final washout of the Puro 2 environment in the suit using nitrox before they get out.
Nitrox being that same air mixture that you have in your scuba tank.
Polaris Dawn é o nome da missão. Crew Dragon é o nome da nave.
Nope, still just air.
They're just gonna keep psyching you out.
Se é flexível era para inflar, mas tudo bem, não entendi. Não entendi a dúvida.
Stand by for transition to repress 2 at 8.3.
Okay, copy that, SpaceX. We're following along. Repress 2 at 8.3.
Yeah, so once we transition to repress 2, once we're at about 8.3 PSI, we'll stay there for about 2 minutes. And then once the cabin gets up to 9, we're going to pause the repress and we're going to do a cabin leak check. This is another kind of critical check. We did the initial one after they closed the hatch.
As medidas...
Let's look at the pressure. Is it increasing at the rate we expect inside Dragon?
Para astronauta é tudo average.
So we were able to confirm
tudo na média, mano.
Everything looked good. We're going to do another leak check.
A altura ideal 1,70, 1,73. Magro normal, sem ser fortão, musculoso, nem gordo. É tipo tudo médio. Tudo coisa média, entendeu? Esse é o ideal.
Yeah, it would be great to see them post EVA. Now, just like when we were depressurizing the capsule, there was the option to pause.
Repress 2. Crew ops check, EV1 good. We're good.
And yeah, that comms that we're hearing.
At a half PSI before we get to the leak check.
Dragon SpaceX with you, monitoring for leak check at 9 PSI.
The continual checks with all 4 crew members.
Perdeu o sinal da câmera, Starlink caiu.
If the answer to one of those checks was no, there would be an option in this repress sequence to pause, possibly to reduce the, allow for ear pressure equalization. But again, just like the way that we depressurize, now this repress, it seems to be going really smoothly.
Yeah, we're...
Agora faltam 50 pessoas, hein, galera? Aí, ó. 50 pessoas para bater 227 mil, galera. Compartilha a live e chame alguém aí para se inscrever no canal. Faltam 50 pessoas.
Repress 2, stop.
Dragon SpaceX with you in EVA repress 2, stop. Waiting 5 minutes for thermal stabilization.
And we're copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking. And crew for your awareness, we do a positive repress rate. We are 30 seconds into the recheck.
Like we mentioned earlier, right now this repress is being done with nitrogen. once we get...
For your awareness, PPO2 is 1.35, halfway there.
The suits are still flowing that oxygen, and in a few minutes we will begin to flow. We'll do a flush of nitrox into the suits.
Nitrox. Nitrogênio e oxigênio.
All right, we got our views back.
There they are.
Yeah.
It's a little sad to see that forward hatch closed again.
It's got to be really hard when they tell you it's time to go back in.
Yeah.
Just one more minute.
Yep. It reminds me of when I was a kid swimming in the pool. You know, time to get out.
Aí a tela. As telas aí, ó. Tudo touchscreen. Tem uns botões aqui também, né?
For Jared, for Sarah, for the whole crew.
Mas as telas são touchscreen.
That's got to be. This is something they've been.
E as luvas são preparadas com touchscreen para a tela ali.
It's got to be really hard not to go for those, that extra 30 seconds, but they're true professionals.
Yep. They know there's a timeline.
2 minutes into this 8-minute leak check. Cross check. Everyone's good. Going good. What you good? PPO2 just passed 1.5.
We're a couple minutes into our leak check. You're seeing the pressure continue to tick up. We've stopped the nitrogen injections, but again, oxygen coming out of essentially a vent line on those suits. And that is why you're going to continue to see the pressure tick up. You heard Jared call out the PPO2. That's gone up. That's your partial pressure of oxygen. We're looking for that to get to over about 2.6, a little bit higher. And then our final actual, just ambient pressure inside Dragon is going to be right around 14.4 or so. And I mean, that's a little bit lower than what we're walking around in now. But if you're at a little higher altitude, state in the country or something, that's what you might be sitting in right now in your house, and they haven't been at that pressure since they left her.
Yeah.
But after we get all the way up there, we're gonna do kind of a final flush of the suits using that nitrox that Kay was talking about. That takes them out of that pure oxygen environment, and that's one of the final steps before we'll hear that call from Arthur. VVA operations complete, and that's when our clock's going to stop. Our spacewalk did start today at 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. It's continuing to tick up. Ours was unique. We talked about it a little bit with Mike. There's different rules for every single spacewalk. It's kind of. It's fun, a little challenging sometimes to track all of them. Even on the space station, there's...
We're halfway through the leak check. Still positive research.
We're about halfway through the leak check, so we got about 4-ish minutes left.
We can see the pressure inside Dragon stabilized during this leak check at 9.4.
Não é nitrox não, cara. Óxido nitroso, não.
That forward hatch.
Pô, óxido nitroso a galera vai dormir.
Shut.
Óxido nitroso não, cara. É porque é o termo que confunde, né? Nitrox.
Sustaining a pressure and measuring that pressure over
é o termo cotidiano, né?
Obviously the
nitrox.
The capsule takes a little longer than the individual leak checks.
Usa como termo de
a little bit more than halfway through.
Oxigênio e nitrogênio misturado. É a mesma coisa que os tanques, por exemplo, que eu falei, o tanque que eu usei lá no Alma, em 5.000 metros de altitude, era um tanque de nitrox. Entendeu? Mergulho também, você tem um tanque de nitrox. Agora, óxido nitroso é para fazer nitro. Lembrei do Need for Speed. Lembrei do Need for Speed Underground agora.
a real no-kidding pressure
Nitro oxide system.
this hatch, and so we're
óxido nitroso é até anestésico, inclusive. Aí os caras dormem. Dorme e morre, né?
It'll slow down a little.
Mas é porque confunde, tem gente que chama nitrox de óxido nitroso mesmo. Aí acaba confundindo.
When we did the depress, that initial, a lot of that atmosphere was flowing over, and once we got down low, it started to slow.
Não foi divulgado o valor do traje.
Really enjoying these in-cabin views. Everyone.
Ela tava tossindo? Vocês ouviram? Tinha alguém tossindo?
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
Sometimes it seems as though the feed freezes just because everybody's relaxing as the.
We're coming up on 7 minutes in the leak check. It's 9.7. PPO2 is at 2.
Olha lá como é que tá o traje agora, 14.3 e a Dragon 9.7.
The final minute of our leak check. Reports on the ground, everything's still looking good.
A cabine está sendo pressurizada agora.
Jared, report down that partial pressure of oxygen right at about 2. Once that gets to
Qual o objetivo dessa missão? Ir no espaço, abrir a janelinha, dar uma bicada de lá de fora e voltar? Sim.
Oxygen to the crew suits is like 2.6 is right where we want to keep it when we're at our final pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, successful leak check. Stand by to restart or repress.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're following.
Great news there. Successful leak check of the cabin.
Repress 2. All right, crew, we're in EVA repress 2. As a reminder, EVA repress 2 will complete when either PPO2 reaches.
O objetivo é fazer isso sem morrer, no caso. E voltar vivo. O objetivo é voltar vivo.
Right now we're coming up on 10 psi for cabin pressure, and PPO2 is 2.2.
Eu achava que eles iam sair da cápsula e passar do lado de fora. Esta parte que ele saiu eu vi, mas esperava mais. Você esperava mais porque provavelmente você viu nas notícias, nos vídeos de internet aí de qualquer pessoa falando o que seria sem saber o que estava falando, né? Eu avisei várias vezes que seria só isso. Provavelmente você não me ouviu.
Flowing that pure oxygen to the suits of the crew, and then eventually we're going to get to 1 atmosphere. It's about 14.4 is our target for today, and then our repress will be complete. So this will go a little bit slower than the initial repress. This could take.
É o mesmo tempo mais ou menos, Guilherme.
30 minutes even in some
é o mesmo tempo mesmo.
You don't want to introduce them super quickly to a higher pressure. Anytime you're doing pressure changes, as gradual as you can make it, the better.
Levam-se umas 2 horas, mais ou menos. Na ISS tem o airlock. Então você abre a escotilha, aí você vai no airlock, que chama. Aí lá é que é despressurizado. E aí você vai e abre a escotilha para sair da ISS. Então são 2 portas, digamos assim. Aí essa preparação toda de botar o traje, verificar, não sei o que, chegar na airlock, sair, pedir por hora, dá umas 2 horas também.
Alright, good news there.
Dragon SpaceX, we concur with EV1 call.
Continuing to repress the cabin, we had a successful leak check. And you can follow along with the repress along with the data.
Esperava mais, foi foda. Se a gente parar para pensar direitinho, né? Os caras literalmente enviaram 4 pessoas.
14 PSIA for cabin pressure, or when cabin PPO2, that partial pressure for O2 reaches about 2.6. So
Tamo junto, Adalberto. Valeu.
Pretty well.
Eu que agradeço, cara. Obrigado pelo Pix.
Cabin 10.55.
Se a gente parar pra pensar, né?
However, as Dan just said,
Porra, 4 pessoas numa nave, num foguete, pra ir em 700 km de altitude, abrir a nave, olhar pro lado de fora, aí vem alguém e diz, é só isso? Eu esperava mais.
Going through the test matrix, like we only got to talk about it a little bit, but you know, just some of the different tests that they were doing while they're out there. This is like fundamental. How do you do a spacewalk? Well, first of all, you use your hands a lot. And how are you going to be able to move around? This is the first time we've ever had the suit in that environment crew. And so they had basically a checklist of like, these are the things you're going to do. It was, you know, use one hand and wave the other one around and see how well you can stabilize yourself. And
then rate that activity on a scale of 1 to 5 and report it back to. We could hear that a little bit in the activity of, okay, I'm doing this thing. Here's
Messias falando, eu esperava mais um pouco, tipo, sair um pouco, ficar só pela corda e voltar. Cara, de onde vocês esperavam isso, velho? Eu falei várias vezes que seria dessa maneira como foi. Então vocês não assistiram os vídeos que eu fiz sobre isso.
Seen astronauts in the robotic arm getting flown around with just their feet strapped in. That's a pretty critical.
Eu falei sobre a Polaris umas 4 vezes mais ou menos, em 4 lives diferentes que eu fiz aqui no canal. Eu falei sobre a Polaris. Vocês não assistiram, então. Eu falei que seria exatamente da maneira que está sendo.
We also saw the helmet cam getting checked out. That was certainly a highlight for us to see what Jared was seeing. Even though at that point I think we were in, you know, the orbital night, but it was many amazing views, and it went by so quickly.
O objetivo é voltar vivo, né?
And we're back.
We got views again.
SpaceX is with you. Reminder to start manual timer on nitrox pursuits.
Desse tipo aqui não tem nenhuma outra missão programada, não. Desse tipo assim?
We're standing by. There it is. Clock started. We're on nitrox pursuit. Cabin TPO2 is 2.16. Cabin atmosphere is 11.6.
Mas mesmo ligados pela corda, eles poderiam sair o corpo inteiro pelo menos. Negativo. Esse cabo aqui tem 3.4 metros, ou é 3.6, alguma coisa assim. Aquela ali é a distância máxima.
Unfortunately, due to ground station coverage, don't have video 100% of the time, even though we wish we did. That would be great, but we can see that Jared
Era para tirar o capacete e fumar charuto no espaço.
To their seats, of course, because they performed their EVAs or their spacewalks, extravehicular activities, where Anna and Kid remained in their seats, the window seats, so we can see their safety harnesses still strapped in there. At this point in time, we are continuing with the repressurization of the Dragon capsule, Dragon Resilience. We had a successful leak check.
Mas tem oxigênio puro também, sabia, Jonathan? No traje com pressão baixa, igual tava, aí é oxigênio puro. Senão você não consegue ter oxigenação suficiente, desmaia e morre. Aí quando vai para uma pressurização normal para o corpo, aí vem a mistura oxigênio e nitrogênio. Mas durante uma caminhada espacial é oxigênio puro. Porque a pressão já é baixa.
PSIA for the Dragon pressure, which is the telemetry readout in the far bottom left corner of your screen.
Yep, and along with that, we're also tracking the partial pressure of oxygen. So we did hear that they've stopped the flow of pure O2 to the suits, and they've switched over to nitrox. So again, anything that we're flowing into the suits also gets introduced into the cabin atmosphere. It's an open loop system. It's how you essentially maintain pressure in the suit, since you're just constantly flowing that air in there to wash out any carbon dioxide they're exhaling, to actually function as they're cooling. So we're switching over to nitrox just to make sure we maintain kind of the right balance of nitrogen and oxygen in that cabin before they get to go to take their suits off. So we're already at that for the O2, and so we're on nitrox in the suits now, still injecting
entendi.
nitrogen into the cabin itself.
Não, mas acabou que o comentário serviu. Eles eles ficam tomando oxigênio puro antes para acostumar o corpo a tirar o nitrogênio do corpo. Eles fazem isso. Faz parte da preparação para fazer caminhada espacial. Por isso que a gente ouviu tossindo ali.
Is going to be EVA operations complete from Arthur.
We're 4 minutes into the O2 walkout. Cabin TPO2 is 2.9, cabin pressure 12.5.
Mas a inalação de O2 100% puro não causa dano dos pulmões? Causa, mas é O2 puro em 14.7, que é aqui, superfície da Terra. Ali eles não estão na pressão da superfície da Terra.
Medical officer Anna Menon. To her left or our right.
Então, esses efeitos de danos pulmonares não são os mesmos, entendeu?
Both of these wonderful women are fellow SpaceX employees. So incredible to see them in space doing amazing things.
Yeah, and seeing Sarah get to poke her head outside Dragon, that was, I mean, both of them have trained astronauts. They've basically gotten people ready to go do this, and it's got to just be really special to get up there and do it themselves.
Incredibly. And then to the right of Sarah was Commander Jared Isaacman, who was the who performed the first EV operation, or excuse me, EVA operation. So Jared went first, and then Sarah after him. And then on the far right-hand side of the capsule, so not this one, but the inside, was Scott Petit, first to go by his call sign Kid. He had the other window seat. Now, if you tuned into the launch phase of Polaris Dawn, you might recall that Scott.
Period. 3 PSI. Cabin pressure is 13.3.
Scott is actually our Polaris Dawn pilot, so in order to enable EVA operations, he and Sarah had to swap seats. So Sarah has been keeping the pilot seat warm for Kid.
Yeah, and like we talked about, we only saw Jared and Sarah actually get up and go outside, but all 4 of these crew members did a spacewalk today. All 4 were exposed to the vacuum of space. This is the first time that's ever happened in human history, having 4 people all at the same time.
Yep.
We saw Jared and Sarah go out and do those mobility tests. Anna and Kid, one of their kind of main roles was being the eyes back inside. Very similar if you've ever watched a space station spacewalk, where you'll have people inside who are able to kind of call out or fly a robotic arm or something. They're just a really important part of the team to make all of this work. Like, no spacewalk doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a vacuum, but like you're never doing it solo. And so they were largely making sure that umbilicals didn't get hung up and keeping eyes on seals and stuff like that for the crew. So
also keeping an eye on the umbilicals in case if it got wrapped around their foot, and just really acting as the assistant coach while the EVAs were underway.
Clodoaldo, eu acho que é isso sim. Mas é uma parte de fisiologia que nem eu sei, cara. Oxigênio puro para evitar narcose por nitrogênio que é causada por uma elevada pressão parcial de nitrogênio.
Coming up on 14 psi.
É o que chama de... Eu lembro que eles já falaram isso em live, é bolha, né? Bolha de nitrogênio no sangue, não tem uma porra dessa?
Technically, the EVA is
Isso aí é medicina, eu não conheço direito.
We have not yet heard the call out, EVA complete. That will be coming after we get confirmation that the repress.
We're 9 minutes into the O2 washout, less than 4 minutes remaining. Cabin PPO2 is 3.1. Cabin pressure is coming up on 1.
O que eu sei é em termos de física, que dá para ter uma lógica interessante de você só ter esse raciocínio. Numa pressão X, você tem uma quantidade de oxigênio misturada com nitrogênio, que é a que a gente tem aqui na superfície da Terra. A gente aqui respirando. Show. Se você está numa pressão bem mais baixa que a gente viu ali, 14.7, 14, ó, aqui, só para vocês terem a referência, 14.7 é a superfície da Terra, 14.7. O traje estava em 4.8, 4.7, não era isso? Então a pressão é muito fraca, interna. Então você tendo a mistura de oxigênio com nitrogênio igual aqui da Terra, você vai ter pouco oxigênio. A pressão é baixa, cara. Como é que você vai ter oxigenação suficiente para sobreviver? Então você aumenta a concentração do oxigênio para poder, embora a pressão seja baixa, você ter uma quantidade que seja equivalente. Consegue pegar a física do negócio?
This is something that we've seen all morning is continual.
Aí por isso que faz oxigênio puro.
Great news there. Confirmation that Dragon repress is now complete.
So right now we're just waiting for that final, we call it the O2 washout. So again, we've been using nitrox instead of the pure oxygen into those suits.
Vai ter mais caminhada? Não. Agora vai diminuir ali a pressão da Dragon e diminuir do traje junto.
For anyone that has joined recently.
Eu vou pegar copo d'água que minha garganta já tá... Mano, esse tempo bizarro de fumaça de queimada tá ferrando geral, velho.
We have had successful completion.
Garganta tá ficando ruim direto.
Jared and Sarah's spacewalks. We saw them move through the test matrix and perform the suit mobility tests and the testing of the Skywalker mobility aid located at the top of the Dragon capsule.
1 minute to go.
They moved through it quite quickly, really quite in the blink of an eye. And we've closed the forward hatch. We have repressurized the Dragon capsule, and we're now standing by for really the final operations of the morning. So yeah, unfortunately, if you only recently tuned in, you should definitely rewind and go back. There were some incredible views of the taking place during the EVAs. The crowd that we had in front of Mission Control here in Hawthorne was almost on cue. We're certainly excited, as were we, to see the views of Jared and Sarah emerging from the top of Dragon Resilience. It's been quite a morning, and I can't believe it's already almost 5 a.m. Pacific. We had
There it is. Arming, disconnecting nitroxy 2. And one in yet? Yep, please. All right, check secondary O2 valves closed. EV1's closed.
EV2's closed.
4-1 closed.
4-2 closed.
All right, you're going to manually vent down.
Checkbox.
Yes, everybody. Whew. Smell that. Space.
Dragon SpaceX, EV operations complete.
That's
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same. Nice job for everyone, and everyone at SpaceX who made it possible. All right. Section 9. Turn all seats, push to talk to manual. Armed.
Execute.
Space.
Wow, if you're just joining us, we just heard the call out that EVA operations are complete, which marks the completion.
EV1, comm check on manual push to talk.
Manual push to talk, loud and clear.
All right, that's the crew just switching off from.
We have you loud and clear.
Just switching off from Vox and back onto the push to talk. That silence, really, that's it. That was the first ever commercial spacewalk. We started at 3:12 a.m. Pacific time, which puts us at 1 hour and 46 minutes. The 4 astronauts on board Dragon Resilience performed a suited pre-breathe process to acclimate their bodies for the reduced pressure. After that, the cabin was vented and the hatch door was opened.
And Mission Commander Jared Isaacman, he was the first to exit the spacecraft. He got out there. We saw him right as we were starting to get into that orbital sunset. He was able to complete all of his tasks before he ingressed, got back inside a Dragon. We did that quick attitude adjustment, and then it was SpaceX's own Sarah Gillis, the second to exit the spacecraft, do her task for the EVA. Jared and Sarah got back inside. Everybody's reporting back healthy. We had a pretty smooth and nominal repress. Our mission pilot, Scott Kidd Poteet, and our mission specialist and medical officer, Anna Menon, have been supporting the spacewalk throughout from inside. They went through the same pre-breathe, the same depress process as Jared and Sarah. They did a spacewalk too today, and everybody's reporting back healthy. And just, I'll say it again because all the stat heads out there, I know you guys are tracking. Our official start time was 3:12 a.m. Pacific, and our official end was at 4:58 a.m. Pacific. That was 1 hour and 46 minutes of spacewalking time. Next, the crew's going to prepare for post-EVA operations. This is powering down everything on their suit. These were only needed, obviously, while they were in there. They're going to be able to get out of their suits next and kind of start moving around the cabin. They turn the Vox off, so we're not hearing kind of like the constant back and forth anymore. But wow, really cool to see him back inside, EVA complete.
And it's, you know, the work isn't completely done yet. They'll also have to perform some comms checks along with some additional tasks before their seats are rotated back into their pre-EVA position. And all in all, wow, just an incredible view. We've said it already a couple of times before if you're just joining.
Dragon SpaceX will be with you when you're ready in 9.3. Cabin atmosphere is looking pretty good right now, very stable.
Acabei fazendo café.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX, and we are ready for
Quando eles retornam? 15 de setembro.
SpaceX copies will report when
That
initiating.
is incredible news.
We're moving into sea rotation, so again, after that, the crew will be able to get out of their suits, and that'll be the end of just a really successful day. Hour and 46 minutes of spacewalking today. So the Polaris Dawn crew, they're back in their seats inside Dragon, completed a successful spacewalk, first ever from Dragon. A massive congratulations to the crew, all the teams at SpaceX who made this possible. Spacewalks are hard, and this was an incredible amount of work over years to get ready. Special thanks to Mike Hopkins Hopper for being here with us today, sharing some great insights.
38 pessoas para 227 mil inscritos.
Not only having done EVAs himself, but also he's a Dragon rider. He commanded the Crew 1 mission, so it was great to have him. Now, Polaris Dawn is the first mission in the Polaris program that will demonstrate new technologies, conduct extensive research, and ultimately culminate in a flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board. All of this while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes here on Earth. Now, you can learn more about the program at polarisprogram.com.
This has been an incredible mission.
Imagina alguém surta lá dentro, corta o cabo, dá soco na tela e pula para o espaço. Pular não tem como, né?
That's higher than any Dragon mission to date.
Isso pode acontecer, cara. Isso pode acontecer, mas tem treinamento psicológico para essas coisas também. Mas de fato isso pode acontecer.
And then today the crew, first civilians to perform an EVA in space, first one in Dragon.
Yeah, and the crew also the first to test Starlink laser-based communications in space. Excuse me, I got too excited. And of course, we'll also be back to bring you live coverage of Splashdown, which we are hoping to have in a couple of days, obviously weather dependent, but you can stay on top of all SpaceX updates by following us on X. Thank you for watching.
Não vão ficar de marola,
não. Real soon.
Ficar de marola. Acabou a live. E aí, curtiram? Caraca, mano, eu preciso dormir um pouco, porque mais tarde ainda vou estudar eletromagnetismo. Partiu então. Bora descansar. Obrigado aí por quem ficou até agora na live aí. Tamo junto. Espero que vocês tenham curtido. Se você quer que esses conteúdos continuem aqui, por favor, compre uma camisa da Insider. QR Code tá ali, ó. Tá no link da descrição aí também. Tá bom? Comprar uma camisa. Aproveita que tá com o desconto do Felipe 15, que voltou. 15% de desconto. Pode comprar, não vai se arrepender não, que é camisa tecnológica. Igual essa aqui que eu tô usando. Pode comprar. Vai se arrepender não, camisa boa. Não desbota. Não desbota nunca. Tech T-shirt. Valeu, galera. Tamo junto. Ah, não, agora não. Eu vou dormir primeiro. Depois eu tenho que gravar o vídeo da teoria que unificou relatividade geral e quântica. Eu tenho que gravar o vídeo disso. Mas eu vou dormir primeiro. Mais tarde eu gravo aí, sei lá, 6 da tarde entra no ar aí esse vídeo. Valeu, galera. Tamo junto.